Yeah, you can. I'll do the prayer. I hereby call the Iberia Parish Council meeting of November 28th, 6 p.m. to order, and if we could all silence our cell phones. Stand for the prayer. Lord, as we gather today at this meeting, we ask that you will be in our midst. Help us to make decisions that will be pleasing to you. Help us to be able to discuss matters at hand in a reasonable way and be willing to give up having our own way. And help us to have inside voices and church words. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Gosselin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You ready? Roll call.
Tommy Pollard. Here. Michael Landry. Here. Tommy Landry. Lloyd Brown. Here. Warren Goshesang. Here. Natalie Broussard. Here. Paul Landry.
Here.
Ricky Gosselin.
Here.
Joe Dugas.
Here.
Eugene Olivier.
Here.
Brian Napier.
Here.
Berwick Francis.
Here.
Marty Trahan.
Here.
Chad Montcherat.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Item number one under public comments. Comments from the general public on non-agenda items. And before we go with Mr. Blair, I'm going to go ahead and have Mr. Craig Romero come up and speak. One moment. I need a motion and a second to go into public comments. I have Ms. Broussard for a motion, Mr. Brown for a second. Roll call. Okay, that passes. Now in public comments. Okay, Mr. Craig. Mr. Pontiff.
My name is Roy Pontiff, and since I'm 1/7 of his boss, I'm going to take his place.
All right, that's good.
Speak after Danny.
All right, that's good. We were glad to have you all.
As you're aware, myself and Danny, along with Ryder Rader, is your representative on the Fourth Commission. And in that capacity, we're here tonight to make a proposition to you. You know, in my years of working at the port, the parish government in the port partnered in numerous projects that created hundreds of jobs. Some of those projects were as large as a 100-acre expansion. Others were smaller individual tenant projects. Y'all provided public works projects. Y'all did drainage for us, improved our roads, helped build out some of our bridges. It's in that spirit of cooperation in partnership that we're here tonight to make this proposition to you. We understand, and I think it's common knowledge, that you're always looking for additional office space and storage. We think we can help. I'm gonna let Craig get into the details of what we're gonna present tonight, but at the end of the conversation, if there is interest in proceeding with what we're going to propose, we certainly can work out the details, bring it back to you for your consideration, as well as bring it to the full commission. So with that, I'd like to turn the mic over to Danny. I think Danny has a couple of comments he'd like to make.
Thank you, Roy. Good evening. We certainly appreciate everything that this parish council does for us at the Port of Iberia to get things done that we get done. It would not be, in a lot of cases, it would not be possible without your help. And we feel like we have a way to kind of repay you for your help that you give us. So, like Roy said, tonight we've got an opportunity to offer to you that will help you get past some of your financial struggles right now as far as office space and stuff. And I want to tell you, it's a pleasure for us to be here to do that. And we certainly, again, appreciate all your help through the years, and we want to offer something back. Thank you all.
Thank you.
If we could, I have a couple of pictures. What this is all about, as you know, over the last few months we've been negotiating, and we finally purchased 106 acres at the Port of Iberia for Goldman Sachs. We did it through the Port Priority Program. We're going to get reimbursed for a lot of that money. But as part of that 106-acre parcel, we have divvied up. Our original intent was to open an industrial park where we have people sort of in line, all wanting the same property now, with the exception of one building that I haven't tried to market. We've cleaned it up. But this first slide you're looking at is just a highlight of the boundary of the 106 acres. And the office to the upper left, well, you're going to see just a roof, but the rooftop and a driveway around it, a circular driveway. It's a 14,000 square foot building, of which I'll show you the floor plan as the last slide. But this building is there. We could conceptually think to market it and rent it, but all the guys that spoke before me said, y'all have done so much for us. And in talking to Larry, to Paul, to all of y'all, and reading the paper and hearing on the street, people putting demands on y'all to provide more space, this building would be perfect. And I suggested it to Larry. Larry met. We looked at the building. I called Paul, and I've mentioned it to y'all as y'all have seen y'all. And I think it's a great opportunity. 14,000 square foot building. When Dynamic closed 5 years ago, closed that location and moved to the other side of the port, they turned the lights off, grabbed their stuff, and it was fully functional. As of right now, we have an HVAC engineer in there checking out all the units to make sure they're totally functional. We've got an electrical engineer. He's already determined we have to change the main service entrance feeding the building. The poles are leaning. We're going to change that using that same pot of port priority money in Baton Rouge. So we're going to use some money out of Baton Rouge to get this facility in first-class shape. And the commission is suggested it, and that's why we've been pursuing it. So it's there. And if you go to the next slide, I'll just give you a few shots. That is an aerial of the front of the building with the horseshoe driveway that comes in. And we're going to also limestone the driveway with about 4 inches of compacted limestone, the parking lot on the side, and then across that ditch that you see about 150 feet. We went today, Richard Hazelwood and I, and looked at it, and the other manager at the sheriff's office, and they sort of visualized how much space they need. So we're going to calculate tomorrow morning what the limestone would be as well. The service entrance is in the back of the building, some of those smaller light poles, and they're leaning and they're pretty antiquated. This facility was built 40 years ago by McDermott. So we've got to upgrade a lot of stuff and repurpose it, just like we're doing for Seadrill. Go to the next slide, please. That's the front view of the building. The 2 trees, one on each side, I removed last week. They're no longer there because I saw them growing into the building. So we removed them. It's a clean building. I wish I could have took a shot today. Next slide, please. That's another shot from the other side, but that was the administration office for the entire 100-acre facility. All the operations in there, the jackets and platforms that were built, all the administrative people were in this building. They've got over 40 offices in this building. You're going to see on the floor plan, and you have that in your handout, the last attachment. And you have 2 big conference rooms that they're going to use for training that are probably, one of them is almost twice the size of this room. And the other one's about the same size as this room, in addition to 40 other smaller offices. So I think it's a perfect building. Next slide, please. That's the side view, the parking lot looking on the side of the building. Next slide. That's the floor plan. All those little squares are not little cubicles. They're big, full-size 10 by 12 by 14 offices, all different dimensions. We're checking out all the air conditioning heating units. They're doing the electrical, all the fixtures, the light bulbs. They're doing all that as we speak. The water line, we met with the plumbing. There's a 4-inch line that fed that whole facility, the whole 100 acres. So we're going to sever it and get a plumber to reconnect and put a backflow preventer on and put a smaller 2-inch line going into that building. We're covering all the bases you can imagine. There's a couple of other things, but our whole intent is to try to put it in a position to where it doesn't cost you anything. They can go in there, and I checked with Entergy on utility costs over the last 3 years of operation when Unifab had it, and Dynamic. It averages $2,400 a month. So that's all you're really going to pay. You know, if you have an incidental once, but I think Andy would have to work with Ray Allen and develop a cooperative endeavor agreement to outline, you know, what it is. And it's with the Port Commission. We'll bring it up at a commission meeting, but if y'all are interested in doing this, I mean, it's a no-brainer to me, but again, it has to be accepted by you guys and the Port Commission as well, and they're all in sync. So I just wanted to come because all of you haven't come and looked at it, and I hate to come to a meeting and y'all looking at voting on something and you know nothing about. I wanted to give you a snapshot of what this is about. I mean, I feel good coming in here not asking you for something. And I know you do too. But I'll be happy to answer any questions, but I just wanted to give a brief synopsis of what it's about.
There's a number of them that I talked to about get together in groups and going to see, but then it spun around a lot quicker. Mr. Richard was in it. Larry, you have any comments?
Yes, I did. First of all, thank you. And thank the
Thank the commission.
That's right. Thank you and thank the commission. Parish Council already know that we've been looking for quite some time for our location for the Sheriff Department. This is going to serve the Sheriff Department very well, I think, especially since Iberia Parish government is responsible for paying for the buildings. The fact that we don't have to come up with any monies to, other than utility monies, it's a huge deal for us. And the people that's going to be moving there from the Sheriff Department, as you know, we didn't discuss all of that. It's going to help us in other areas as well. So, Craig and the commission, thank you so much for what you're doing at this particular time in Iberia Parish government. With the finances the way they are right now, we'd really we could use something like this to help us and help the Sheriff Department. Thank y'all so much.
Okay. Mr. Brown?
Oh, boy, this really sounds good. But Larry, did y'all talk to the sheriff?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. This is something that, in fact, when we first talked to the sheriff, or when I first talked to the Sheriff Department, the first thing is I'm not really interested in it. Then I called Paul because Paul had spoken to Craig as well, and I said, I really need a drawing for this particular building. So Paul came back with the drawings, and I went to Richard Window and showed him the drawings, and they still seemed like they were kind of reserved. But they decided that they was going to go take a look at it. When, Craig, last week? I guess it was
A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago when we take a look at it, it was a totally different story when you walk in there. It's a big building. These offices are, you're talking real nice size office. Training rooms, of course, they're looking for training. The sheriff going to be doing a lot of things there that they're not going to get involved in right here or say anything right now, but it's going to fit them very well
Well,
for what they're trying
to further tell you how excited the sheriff's office is, the reason I'm here tonight, I called Paul day before yesterday. I called him day before yesterday because I got an email from my architect that mentioned that the sheriff's office is ready to come in with people and start cleaning it to occupy it. And I said, whoa. I'm not making a deal with the sheriff's office. I'm making a deal with the parish council. I got to come to Jesus with the council and the commission and get the blessing of both groups. So that's why I wanted to come tonight, because they really want to get in and start cleaning it. They feel they can occupy it like it is. But I'm not finished evaluating the heating and cooling. I want to make sure that's fully functional and it doesn't cost you down the road.
And we still have some, we're still renting a building that the sheriff is going to, we have to rent that building till the end of that particular term. So we still have some things we're working out. But if it works out the way we're planning on it working out, they should be in that building a couple of months at least before their agreement is up with the property that they're renting now. Okay. Whichever property that is, the Sheriff Department rents several pieces of property, so we should be in good shape.
All right, that's all right if he's satisfied.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you,
If y'all
sir.
have any questions, call if y'all want to come look at it. Mike?
Michael Landry.
Sorry.
Just a comment more than a question. I think this is a great thing if we all can come to agreement, the sheriff, the port, and this parish council. I think this what we all sitting at around this desk for, to move Iberia Parish forward and save some money. So if it comes to fruition, I'm happy as a lark. So thank you.
Thank y'all, Mike.
Mr. Romero, it'll be on our committee meeting on December 12th, and it'll be on full council on the 19th, and I'm sure Mr. Richard will sign it, so that'll probably be our plan.
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all very much.
Have a good meeting.
Thank y'all.
Okay, moving on to item number A, Iberia Parish County Agent Blair Hebert to address the council to present their office's annual report. Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's kind of a tough act to follow tonight. We just here to give our annual report. Hopefully we're like Mr. Craig and we're not asking for anything, and the rest of the guys from the port. Again, I'm Blair Hebert, a county agent and parish chairman with the Iberia Parish Cooperative Extension Service. Came here in December of '97, so I think this is the 20th time I stand before this group to give our annual report. I think by now, most of you have been on the council. Some of you a little bit longer than others, but you know who we are. We are the LSU Ag Center. Yeah, we associated with the folks who had a tough game Saturday night, but we're the ones who take the information from the university and we try to disseminate it to the people out here in what we call the parishes. We're pretty fortunate here in Iberia Parish. The LSU Ag Center involves research, extension, and teaching. So that's the research stations, the extension offices, and the College of Agriculture on the campus. We have 2 of those 3 entities here in Iberia Parish. Right next door, the courthouse annex is our office on Providence Street, and then on LSU Bridge Road is the Iberia Research Station in Jeanerette. Over there, the research station in Jeanerette, they primarily focus on sugarcane research and beef cattle research and all those things that go with it, and they're branching out into some fisheries and aquaculture work. The extension office here on Providence Street, we are comprised of 3 different areas, what we call ANR, Agriculture and Natural Resources, FCS, Family and Consumer Sciences, and 4-H and Youth Development work. Just to let you know, on your handout, if you look at the Iberia Parish profile, which is in the burgundy folders, agriculture is a big business in Louisiana and definitely here in Iberia Parish. It's about $112+ million industry, and about 80 to 90% of that comes from when we grow plants. When we grow plants, there's one crop in particular that sticks out. I just want to let you know, if you look at 17 to 18, every year as A&R agents, we help put together the agriculture summary, and the value of ag rose $10 million from 17 to 18. We attribute that primarily to sugarcane farmers. Ricky, I'm not saying all sugarcane farmers are making money hand over fist. That's gross money. We got to realize net is going to be different when we're talking about that. We continue to provide the services that we provide to our farmers that are listed inside the parish profile. And with that, I'd like to introduce some of our staff. Next is Ms. Mandy Armentar with our FCS program.
Thank you, Blair. Good afternoon, or good evening, I should say, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is Mandy Armentar. I'm the area nutrition agent for this parish and the neighboring parish, Vermilion Parish. Just to highlight some of the Iberia Parish efforts. First of all, we have a very strong relationship with the library program, and every month that I teach a cooking and nutrition education class to both parents and their children. And that has been very well received. We have been doing this program for about 3 years, and it continues to grow strongly. Another effort we have is some school-based nutrition education, and we're hoping to launch that education effort with something new in the beginning of next year called Healthy Communities. We are going to focus on one school, and in hope of that is our pilot, and then expand to all the different other schools. At this school, we're going to do some in-school nutrition education with our 3rd through 6th graders. We're also going to have some opportunities for outside of the classroom that the parents can come with the kids to do some nutrition and physical activity lessons. And then in addition to that, we're hoping to also bring a school garden to that school and tie in the agriculture with growing those fruits and vegetables, teaching some nutrition, teaching some science, teaching some math as well. And that school, I don't want to say because I don't want anybody to get their feelings hurt, but it is coming and forthcoming. So just kind of keep your ears open. And it's something that we're very excited about. We also, one of our largest events that most of you are probably familiar with is our Ag Adventures program. We take over 1,200 third graders from both the public and the private schools in this parish. We bring them to the Sugarina, and we teach them everything they have to know or need to know about how agriculture plays a role in the foods that they eat, the clothes they wear, and some of the products that they use. And we teach them that milk doesn't come from Walmart. It comes from a cow, and how that process goes. And believe it or not, you'd be surprised at how many third graders think milk comes from Walmart. And that's just a snapshot of some of the programs going on in the family and consumer sciences field. I'm now going to introduce Mr. Maddox Miller. He's our 4-H agent, and he's going to give a highlight and overview of our 4-H program.
Thank you for having us. So my name is Maddox Miller. Relatively new 4-H agent. Started in February 2017. Grew up in New Iberia, so really happy to be working with the youth of our parish. So 4-H in a snapshot, we work with 4th to 12th graders in all public and private schools. So we have approximately 33 clubs around the parish. I'm really proud of our program. Like I said, right at 1,000 4-Hers. We have opportunities throughout the school year, so it's not just a school-time program. We have summer camp. We have a challenge camp. We have 4-H University, where we go to the campus at LSU. We have different contest days, and also a lot of people know 4-H for the livestock program. 4-H has the traditional side such as livestock, but we're also implementing some of the shooting sports. We have an archery program, and we're also branching into a school garden program, working with a partnership with what Ms. Mandy said. So we're really excited about all of our volunteers that we have, all of the staff that works with us, and also all of the local support. We really appreciate all that you do for us. And I'd like to introduce our newest 4-H agent, Ms. Patrice Cahey, who has recently joined the LSU Ag Center in the 4-H agent position.
Good evening. How you doing? My name is Patrice Cahey. I am also from New Iberia. I've been with the LSU Ag Center for over 2 years. I was a nutrition educator, working directly under Miss Mandy Armentar, the FCS agent. I'm really looking forward to being in this new role with 4-H, trying to expand the program and getting more of our youth involved in our community, giving back with service learning projects as well. Just wanted to introduce myself, so thank you guys. I hope you have a great evening.
One more member of our staff who's usually here, that's Tom Email. He's our area fisheries agent. Tom's been instrumental. Y'all been very supportive of his programs in the fisheries and aquaculture area. One of the things that they started here was the Delcom Direct program with seafood, and it's been so successful. It got picked up to the east of us in the Lafourche Terrebonne area, got picked up to the west of us in the Cameron area, and now it's starting to get picked up on the East Coast from Florida up to Maine. The way folks can just buy seafood directly from the boats cuts out the middleman, and it's a win-win for the public and for the fishermen. So that's been a great program, and we appreciate what Tom does for us. Again, the economic importance of what we deal with and the contacts that we make. Hopefully you see that in your packets. We do have a MOU with you guys. We sign it every 5 years. The most recent one was signed this year with your blessing, the council and the parish president. We appreciate that. This is the most, folks, that I can remember in several years. Your staff is homegrown, except for me. I've been here 20 years, but everybody else in the office is from Iberia Parish. So it's Iberia Parish folks helping Iberia Parish folks. We appreciate the opportunity, and I can tell you this, when we had a 4-H position, our 4-H agent left to go teach. When we went to the state office, they know how well we're supported. That position got filled. When we created a vacancy with Miss Patrice, we actually she started November 1st in her new position, and we were interviewing today to replace her. The state office appreciates the support we have, and that's why I think we're able to keep this going. Few changes that I want to make y'all aware for the county agents. Traditionally, we've worked one parish. They're asking us to start specializing. So somebody like in my case, I'm going to start serving sugarcane in 6 parishes. I was kind of already serving 3 or 4, and that means we have some other folks that'll be coming in, horticulture, livestock, soybeans, and technology, like drone technology. We have some folks that'll be coming, help me out with that, and when you come to our meetings, you'll see those folks. And we're all going to do some downsizing due to budget restraints at the Iberia Research Station. We don't think it's going to be as drastic in the sugarcane area. We don't need that much land to do research. But with the cattle, we're going to probably reduce the herd, make it smaller, and hopefully can save a little bit of money there. We're not closing it. We're just reducing things. And with that, thank you again. We all love working here. Appreciate the opportunity. We'll answer any questions.
Okay, it doesn't look like we have any questions. Thank you, Mr. Blair.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 2, comments from the general public on agenda items, person being considered for appointment to the parish boards, commissions to address the council. The first person is Ms. Dorothy Neal. She's with Pork and Recreation.
I'm Dorothy Neal Gauthier, and I have been volunteering. I've been a volunteer exercise leader for IRAC since 2004. And before that, I was a water exercise instructor. I have a special interest in the wellness program that the Iberia Parish Park and Recreation has, as well as other programs in the park. I enjoy giving back to the community through volunteering. I've been on the Recreation and Playground Commission for 8 years now. and I'm asking that you all please consider me for the reappointment for this commission. Any questions?
We don't have any light up, but I would like to say thank you. Y'all helped us out by, let's see, we have Mr. Marty Trahan. Mr. Trahan?
Saying what you were gonna say. Ms. Nell, thank you for what y'all have done and what y'all keep doing, you, Jay, and a couple others on that board. Y'all really have served the community well throughout the years. You, Mr. Jay, and them. We appreciate y'all's service and time.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Ms. Neal.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let's see. The next person up is Mr. Chris Davy. He's going to be talking about the 4937. Davi?
We're down to 2 people, and I think we have 2 others that are going to speak.
Okay. Okay, Linda Trahan? Okay. Mr. Neri, you want to come on up? Yeah.
Hello again. My name's Neri Hewlin. I live at 6211 Freeman Road, and I'm here to speak in opposition to the rezoning of Thibodeau's Trailer Park. I'm going to keep it brief. We went through it pretty good at the Public Works meeting, so we pretty much know about everything. But I'm going to start with something that we probably can all agree on. One is the road. Y'all all know the road is substandard. In fact, I have a letter here that I'm going to pass on to Andy Shealy, if I could. Basically, from the Iberia Parish School Board Transportation Department, and the reasons why they don't send school buses down the road. So I think first the roads, I think we can all agree that the road is insufficient for that large of a expansion. Next is flooding. We all know that it floods. 1995, I think it was, we ran into some problems. Casey's grandfather came in and had problems with flooding in his trailer park. So engineers went out there and they did some drainage work and actually made things worse. So we can all agree that flooding is also a problem. Low water pressure. Coastal water, I spoke to Mr. Manuel, I think his name was, Ronald, and water pressure is low, continues to be low, and although they have something in place to increase that water pressure, at the moment and at this time, there's no time or date as to when it's going to increase. So I think we can also agree that the low water pressure is a problem. Quality of life. I've been out there for 36 years. Bought the property, had cane on it, cleared it out. 36 years later, I've got 28 oak trees, about 3 foot in diameter. Got it perfect like I want it. And now here comes a 20-acre tract trailer park. So quality of life is definitely going to be messed up. I think we can all agree on that. Property depreciation. We all know what happens when a trailer park moves in the area. That's something that we can agree on. And according to Andy Shealy, at the last Public Works meeting, a lot of y'all have issues that this is not the time nor the place for the issues that we're bringing forward. We all agree, I think, that there are issues. And Andy Shealy at the last Public Works meeting basically said that y'all can absolutely use these issues to draw a decision on whether to let it go or not pass. But in speaking with some of y'all and the responses that I got from some of y'all from last meeting was that y'all feel this is not the right time, that our issues need to be brought up during the planning area. And I'd like to yield some of my time to Andy, if I could, if he's willing to expound on that.
Well, I think we're going to hold off on that. I think your 3-minute time has ran up. You want any closing argument?
Okay, Mr. Paul. First, we had about 4 or 5 people that wanted to talk tonight. You asked me to reduce it. I reduced it to 2. The previous people that came up here, you didn't even start the 3-minute period, so I would appreciate a little bit more time.
But it was a different type of speaking. They were instructing us on some savings that they were going to give us.
And I can also remember a time not that long ago. I've been gone about 6 years, and we never had a clock. I mean, y'all represent the people. Y'all got to listen to the people, and you got 107 people on a petition, and you got over 35 or 40 tonight, and y'all need to listen.
We're listening, Mr. Nary.
Okay.
I think, you know,
Well, give me
we spoke the last time.
Be a little looser and give me a couple more minutes. I'm
I'll
almost
be happy
done.
to give you another minute.
Okay. Mr. Nate Mitchell, he sits on the Planning and Zoning Board. His reasoning for sending it forward with an approval was that New Iberia doesn't allow trailers anymore. They don't allow trailer parks. Okay, so being that we have 4 to 5 trailer parks in the immediate area, let's send them over there. Well, fine, you know. It's good for him, but there's a reason why New Iberia don't want trailer parks. There's a reason why Broussard don't want them. There's a reason why Youngsville don't want them, and there's a reason why Lafayette doesn't want them. They don't pay taxes. They pay 0 ad valorem taxes. Personally, in my 36 years that I'm in the place where I'm at now, I've spent close to $70,000 in just ad valorem taxes. Sure, we need roofs, but a mobile home in a trailer park, in a mobile home park, does not pay ad valorem taxes. Now you take those same trailers and you put them on a private lot, then they start paying ad valorem taxes. So are we going to be the trailer depository? You know, I mean, Iberia Parish is hurting for money. Okay, that's a way to start. Okay. Okay. Well, that's pretty much all that I have. But we have one more thing. We currently have 295 mobile homes in our trailer parks. We got 45 lots that are still available. What do we need another 80 to 100 lot trailer park out? There's still 45 lots available on those 4 mobile home parks that are in the area. What's the trailer park on Highway 88? New Horizon. New Horizon is offering 2 months free rent to try to entice people to come in. We don't need any other parks. And that's all I have. I mean, I'm just asking that y'all be just listen to what we have to say, and listen to what the people are telling you. I mean, like I said, they got 107 people that signed a petition in that little bitty area. You got 35 to 40 people here tonight, and it's y'all job to listen to the people when they respond. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nary.
Any questions, anything? Thank you.
Okay, was Mr. Billy Smith going to speak, or Miss Mary Babineau? Okay. So he wants to speak. I guess I'm gonna have to let him speak. Billy Smith, the one who just gave you. Let's start our clock.
Good evening. My name is Mary Babineau, and I live at 1412 Laurent Armentor Road. I've lived there for 43 years, along with a lot of other people in the neighborhood who've been there a long time. I want to go ahead. This is a different poster. I know y'all saw the other one last time, but this was for the 2016 flood. Okay, so, and I mean, this one, it was really bad. Okay, so I'd like to pass it around if you don't mind. You know, my big issues have been traffic, and flooding is another big problem. When you have that increase in mobile homes, you're going to have less absorption and you're going to have more runoff. And 100 and something new mobile homes, that's a lot of area that will, in other words, will have less absorption from that area and more runoff. I know at the last meeting, someone mentioned that the LDEQ requires quarterly sampling. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the LDEQ, which is the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality, is actually, it's public information. You can go on there and you can pull up information, you can see different files, okay? And she mentioned that they do, that these people who have these mobile homes, that they, the LDEQ monitors and, you know, they do quarterly sampling, and she was correct. They do, according to the LDEQ, they do self-sampling, okay? According to the information from the LDEQ website, Mr. Thibodeau's mobile home park has what's called discharge limitations, okay? And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. I pulled up his October 16th, 2018 sampling, okay? That was the most recent. And according to the DEQ, they give him a limitation for the fecal coliform, which is a maximum of 400. Now, fecal coliform is actually bacteria that's in that material that affects humans, okay? Now, the maximum was 400. His on that reading was 2,419, okay? The BOD is another number. It's bio-oxygen something, okay? And that is a material in your water that takes oxygen out that affects fish. It should be from 30 to 45, and he has all these. This was given to him, okay? His was 200. According to the LDEQ website, his was 200, okay? The LDEQ records show that Mr. Thibodeau's mobile home, I think it might be an LLC, I'm not sure, from April of 2016 through September of 2018, that's 2 years, okay, approximately. He had approximately what they call, it's 34, what they call excursions. That means he went over the permit limit. His numbers went over the permit limit. So it appears that all reports submitted during those 2 years, except for January 17th through March 17th, show that he went above his limitations, okay? If you look at, according to the LDEQ's website, April 2011 through June 2016, that's 5 years. He had no DMR reports in the database. So he had no samples that showed sampling of these discharges that were tested. And my understanding is that the LDEQ really monitors this, okay? Well, obviously, it's not been monitored very closely. It appears also that from the time that he, or the time that if it's an LLC or his father or whatever, I'm not sure, but when they started it, from the time that they put in the system, the big system that they have, sewage system, till 2011, there was nothing. There were no samples, you know, recorded for those dates. So, you know, let's go now to the flooding. Okay, so not only is it appears to me, from what I can see, the only sampling that he had that he submitted was from 2016 to 2008. That's those 2 years, and that's out of how many years? That's out of, I mean, I've been there for 43. Thibodeau's been there for what, 30-something years. I don't know if it was 2030. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I don't know if it was 2030. I don't know if it was 1980 or 85 when they started the trailer park, but it was about that time. Now, listen, the flooding I'm so concerned with the flooding because you know that what we put into our water goes and it floods, it goes into the homes. And you know, I'm concerned about my neighbors. A lot of people flooded. They had water in their homes. Mr. Smith had water in his homes during this flood. In the back, Miss Armentor had water in her home. So what we put into the water, yeah, it can go into our homes. It can go not only into our homes, but it also goes into our ditches, our homes. It can even make its way into our water system, our water wells, and we all have water wells down there. So that's a concern. On August, let's go back. So August 2016, which is a flood that you're looking at, the report, according to the LDEQ website, the fecal coliform count, which the limit is 400, it was 4,500. 4,500. The BOD, which is supposed to be from 30 to 45, according to the website, was 36, so it was okay. And if you go back to the 2018 rain, which I just submitted to you, that fecal coliform number was 2,419. The BOD was 200. Okay, so they're exceeding way over, in some cases, limits.
Miss Mary, could you start wrapping it up?
Yes, sir, I will right now. Mr. Thibodeau apparently was approved, his father or whatever, the trailer park was approved originally, the original part, somewhere around 1980 or 85. And I'm sure during that time they had guidelines that were laid out to follow back then. But according to the LDEQ records, and in my opinion, it doesn't appear that he's doing that, or his representative, whoever his representative may be. So how can you justify approving 20.45 acres when it appears, you know, according to the LDEQ records, it shows that he's not complying with what he has now, okay? He's not keeping up with it. Rules should apply for everybody, you know. I'm sorry, but it should apply for everybody. I realize that he is is he on the sewage board maybe, but it should apply for everybody. My concern are these water wells, these people that live down Armentor Road. I mean, we need also, Coteau water system needs to go down there. I know they're only going up to around where the trailer parks are, but they need to go down there because if this is getting into the homes, okay, and this is getting into their water system, they've got a problem. And like Mr. Neri said, we all need and we deserve quality life. Okay? So please, I heard somebody say that they're going to do the right thing. Please do the right thing and vote against this rezoning. If anybody needs the LDEQ records or if they want to look at them, I have them with me. You're more than welcome to.
Thank you, Ms. Mary.
Thank you very much. And I really appreciate you guys listening to me.
And finally, we have Mr. Billy Smith. We're going to hold him to hard 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Billy Smith. I have live at 6315 Freeman Road. I
Okay,
have three.
Mr. Smith, we're going to really try to hold that 3 minutes this time, okay?
I'll try.
All right.
Okay. I have three pieces of property directly affected by the trailer park that exists now. And I pay taxes on those three pieces individually. Okay. Unbeknownst to me, I haven't had the pond that long, but when I cleared around the sides of it, then I could see what was actually going on. And I go right around when the water's high in the flood because I have a four-wheeler, that four-wheel drive. So I'm out there in the rain and stuff. I see where that water flows and where it goes and everything. Mr. Thibodeau called me and got in touch with me, said maybe we could try to work some stuff out. But the only thing I can come up with is too little, too late. They've done too little on this with the trailer park they have existing now that my pond borders for a good I don't know, maybe 700 feet or something like that. And with the water running over out of the trailer park, when it floods, or even when it doesn't flood sometimes with a heavy rain, that water backflows into my pond. And I just recently had a little bit of water testing done, and apparently I have a pond that may not be suitable for fish, okay? And they said my numbers might be high because I have 3 ducks in a 2.5 acre pond. And then but then again, they said, well, you have fish. I'm like, well, okay, what are the numbers? So they gave numbers as, to me, my count was 1,986.3. And I was told that anything over 200, you don't swim in, you don't go in and stuff. So that means I'm getting flooded sewage and stuff from somewhere backing up. And I have videos and pictures and stuff of mainly what's coming off of the trailer park now. They did fix some of it, but too little, too late. My pond is more or less gonna be, I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. But I do have fish and stuff in there. So if anything is expanded, even putting trailers on his other acres on the other side of him, the sewage can't handle it. I mean, the ditches and stuff can't handle it because it backs up now. And like I said, I've been there 30 years, and that's the first time I got water. And that's a lot to do with drainage, but a lot to do with the sewage too, because where it flows and stuff. It's not being taken care of, where it can be gotten rid of, because some of the tanks overflow. When the water goes over, the septic tanks overflow, and you can watch the water come back, and it's coming back out of the tanks. And when people get off at 5 o'clock and it's flooded, then you can tell more, because I think they're for 40 trailers they're allowed 12,500 gallons a day, and they have 53, I think, and so that's probably almost 20,000 gallons a day. And the water can't go anywhere when it rains, except it builds up, goes under people living there's trailers, houses and stuff. My house, everybody's house, that the water goes up. That water backflows. It backflows and it's nasty water. I mean, it's failing the test. And I didn't know that until just recently when I had my water tested at my own expense, which wasn't very much, but I mean, too little, too late. We just don't need more water flow, as far as I'm concerned, on there. And that's that. Anytime you add trailers, you're going to have more water flow. 20,000 gallons a day.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Any questions?
No.
Yeah, I don't know how to hook it up, but I could do it individually. I mean, I'm not familiar how.
It's, Mr. Bill, it's going to be a little bit too late. You would have needed to give that to the clerk before the meeting started. But
Okay.
I appreciate your time, you know.
Any questions? Any questions? I'll take questions for a couple of minutes.
And, you know, this was a lot of good discussion and everything. This is a lot like our very first year in office where we had a trailer park issue and, you know, we didn't give him what he did deserve at that time, and we went into a lawsuit and everything. So it's just asking for for rezoning. You know, it doesn't mean that he's going to be able to do anything.
But he's looking for a lawsuit. He's looking for a lawsuit from me. If my water's polluted from his trailer, I mean, I have nothing else draining in there except the trailer park.
Okay.
So, you know.
Next up, we have Mr. Casey Thibodeau,
Thank you.
4937.
I appreciate y'all listening to me.
Casey Thibodeau, 2519 Sugar Mill Road. Don't even know where to begin, but I guess if I was talking to subdivision, things would be different. But you know, when you sit back and you look at it, not everybody can afford a $250,000, $300,000 house. And, you know, we have an ordinance that I have to follow and have to meet all the rules and regulations and everything that we just passed, okay? And you know, the thing about it is that when somebody comes and goes to work, you got two guys, and one, you know, they're both working in the oil field, and one can only afford a $30,000, $40,000 mobile home. What do you tell that guy? I mean, what do you say to that guy? You say,
let's
say
hold
we
it
can't
down
we
in
can't
the
be in this
audience,
parish. We can't accept this. I mean, you know, but the $250,000 house, we're gonna go ahead and take that. You know, I mean, what what's the message we're trying to send? So I'm looking for the guy that I get phone calls all the time that want to move into the parish and, you know, can only afford a $30,000, $40,000 mobile home and wants to put it in a place to go. So, you know, when you have a person that says, here, I have this piece of property and I want to do this, you know, everybody should be encouraging as long as I'm following all the rules and regulations of everything. I get a permit from the Department of Health and Hospitals every year. DEQ has never called me. All the information that they're telling you, you know, I got whole pack wastewater who comes and pulls my samples and goes through all the whole night. If I was not in compliance right now, I would be shut down, no doubt about it. Okay, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking today about rezoning. That's all we're talking about. But I'm getting bombarded on. Don't even have a breath of life on that because, you know, they just don't want mobile home parks. Period. And that's it. That's the facts. You know, but you know, not everybody can afford property. Not everybody can afford houses. But I do know in Iberia Parish right now, we're trying to bring more rooftops. So how can we do that without having more mobile home parks? You know, and I'll say this: how many people in this room started off in a mobile home or in a starter house? How many people? Raise your hand. Come on, how many people lived in a mobile home? Be honest.
I'm a poor guy. I started off poor. But the thing y'all need to understand is other people, I live alone the same.
Sir, we in public. Go ahead, Mr. Thibodeau.
So, you know, at the end of the day, I want to work with everybody. I want to follow the rules and regulations of everything. I got one of the nicest parks in the parish. It's a very quiet park, and I just can't understand how I'm trying to do something for the good of the parish, but I'm getting blocked every which way possible. You know, I mean, we're talking Ashley Drive. I haven't began preliminary approval. I don't know if I'm gonna put 5 mobile homes, whatever the planning and zoning office says I can put is what I'm gonna be able to put for water, sewer, layout, the whole 9 yards, traffic patterns, flooding issues. I could complain just as much as they are. That's not my issue. That's a parish issue. But we need to shut Koto down. We just need to shut it down because we can't put any more on the water system. We can't put any more with the flooding. We can't do any of that. I mean, come on, guys. You know?
Okay. Thank you, Casey. That's okay. Next, we go to Mr. Chief Guy Bonow.
Yes, sir. Chief Bonan with the Fire District. I'm applying for the position actually on our 911 board, the Communications District, that is designated for the Fire District. I've been in the position for 10 years, been the chairman for almost 8 years, and want to continue to serve on the 911 Commission Board with y'all approval tonight. If you got any questions, I'll take them.
Thank you, Guy. We have no questions for you.
Thank you.
Okay, is Miss Alice Robichaud with the veterans here? Mr. Calvin Arrington with the Recreation and Playground? Mr. Warren White with the Robert B. Green? Or Mr. Laven Rachel Dehab with Robert B. Green? Okay. Is that, is it, it's probably public works. Okay. You want to go tell him this one? Okay, no one else to address. I need a motion and a second to go into regular session. I have a motion by Ms. Broussard, a second by Mr. Brown. Roll call. Just go ahead and force it through. Okay, that motion passes. Now we're back in regular session. Reports, finance, and administration action, balance sheets for October 28th. You should have received in the packet. Budget report for October 2018 on request. Reports for parish and other governmental agencies. We have none. Public Works reports, Public Works Department report for open work orders dated November 20th, 2018 was in your packet. Special business, we have none. Council member announcements. Is there any councilman that has an announcement? Mr. Eugene Olivier?
I want to announce that on Tuesday of last week, I took part in the NACO Transportation Policy Steering Committee conference call. We discussed numerous topics at this conference call. I won't get into all the details because we got a long meeting tonight. But I did share some information with Guy Boney with the Fire District about a possible grant program he can maybe take advantage of. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no one else with council member, parish president announcements. Mr. Richard.
Okay, I just have a few. Robert B. Green Veterans Memorial Building renovations. A pre-bid conference was scheduled this morning to foundation stabilization phase of the project. No contractors attended. Proposals are due on December 11th at 11 o'clock. Demolition of the blue house that we purchased on 320 Providence Street. A pre-bid conference will be held tomorrow at 11 o'clock for all prospective bidders. Bids are due back December 11th at 10 o'clock. Renovations for Gosnell facility rebid. A pre-bid conference was held on November the 13th and was very, very well attended. The date was extended until December the 10th for the actual bids to come back in. Our litter abatement program on Saturday, November the 17th, we collect a total of 20 bags of trash, 15 tires, and everything was picked up from old LA 25. Yesterday we had a meeting. Iberia Parish government personnel met with the mayor of Laurelville, representative from the city, local engineers, regarding Iberia Parish stormwater management program. We were notified by DEQ that we must reapply for a permit regarding stormwater management coverage by January the 12th, and we're working diligently to try to get that in order. On Saturday, December the 2nd, Iberia Parish will host the Hayes Town Holiday Home Tour to benefit Iberia Parish Culture Resources Association, the Hilliard Museum, and also the Louisiana Architectural Foundation. This is going to be held here at the courthouse on Saturday. We're also going to feature 4 private homes in our parish, as well as the St. Joseph Church in Laurelville. One other thing I want to report is that on Monday I got a phone call from a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Mr. Tommy Granger. He's resigning. And he wrote a letter for me to read. And basically it says, with regret that I tender my resignation from the Planning and Zoning Commission Board. I do not wish to continue my service due to personal reasons. It has been an honor and a privilege to have served. Working with so many people over the years have been a great learning experience. I want to thank the president, the council, and the commission for all they have done. Tommy Granger. And that's it. We have a long meeting tonight, so just so you guys know. Thank you. Any questions? No.
No questions, Mr. Richard.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Consent agenda items for,
Got something important about Catholic High. Look like nobody's announced it. They're going to the Dome on December the 6th. I expect y'all to be all there.
thank you, Mr. Consent agenda items for public hearing and adoption. We have the minutes, the regular meeting of November 14, 2018. Summary number 205, introduced by the parish president, a resolution granting partial substantial completion to the Back Road Bridge Replacement Project. All is completed by Gray Construction Corporation as recommended by project engineer Wayne M. Labiche Engineering LLC. Does anybody want to pull any of those items out? 205. Okay, we're going to be pulling out 205, so we're going to be voting just on the minutes. Roll call. Oh, I need a motion, Ricky. I have a motion by Mr. Gonsalves, second by Ms. Broussard. Roll call. Tommy. That motion passes. Okay, we're back to summary number 205. We need a motion and a second on that. I have a motion by Mr. Gonsalves, second by Mr. Napier. Mr. Gonsalves?
Yeah, I think me and Mr. Napier were talking about, we just wanted to get a status on the bridge. Is it open or closed, or what is, should be open? Yeah.
I got a call, Larry, just a few days ago. It must have just opened, huh? Yeah. Okay, because from a former that
it had opened, and I think you and I spoke about it, it closed because of some barric, but it's open for good. It's not gonna close, and it's open.
Should be open for the farmers.
Okay,
And
that,
if it's not, call me back.
sure, believe me, I will. Yeah, okay, thank you, Larry.
Okay, no further discussion, roll call. That motion passes. Ordinances introduced for public hearing, summary number 4936, introduced by Paul G. Landry, and ordinances amending ordinance number 2018-06-4917, which established a policy whereby the Iberia Parish Council selects a board, commission, and/or department of Iberia Parish government to conduct an additional compliance review of agreed-upon procedures in conjunction with the parish's annual audit, to change the selection from the Iberia Parish Council to the council chairman and finance chairman. I have a motion by Ms. Broussard, a second by Mr. Michael Landry. Ms. Broussard.
Waive.
Mr. Michael Landry. Roll call. Okay, that motion passes. Just as a piece of information, the audit starts on Monday, and I'm going to get with Mr. Olivier to pick a board or commission for them to start that on. Summary number 4937, introduced by the Zoning Commission, an ordinance denying the reclassification requests for the property of Kenneth Thibodeau, 1400 block of Ashley Drive, located generally north of Ashley Drive and south of Freeman Road, the particular parcel being rezoned from A1 agriculture to R4 T1 manufactured mobile home park located in District 14. All is reviewed by the Iberia Parish Zoning Commission, and whereby a motion to approve the request failed to pass the Iberia Parish Zoning Commission. I need a motion and a second. I have a motion by Ms. Broussard, a second by Tommy Landry. Ms. Broussard.
Yes, I'd like Sarah to take the hot seat. Hmm? Yes, ma'am. Could you explain to us exactly what this zoning request is and what it would the result would be if it was granted?
Okay, so the request is to currently the property, the 20-something acres of property is zoned A1. The request is to rezone the property from A1 to R4 T1. And the T1 comes into effect, the R4 is the mobile home park zoning. The T1 comes into effect based upon the mobile home park regulations that you guys passed in March of 2017. So the T1 designation is for a rental type mobile home park, and then there's a T2 designation that if you wanted to, let's say I'm the developer and I want to sell to you, Natalie, to put a mobile home on it. So I'm actually selling you the land, you're going to own it, and then you're going to move a mobile home on it. So that's the distinction between the T1 and the T2. If you approve the rezoning, it will rezone the property from A1 agricultural to R4 T1 for him to put a mobile home park there, if he so chooses to at whatever point in time. What it does not do is automatically grant that mobile home park. You're just rezoning the property. He would still have to go through the planning process, for lack of a better term, or the platting process, to basically say, okay, I have this 20 acres of property, and based upon the regulations that are set forth, both in the subdivision regulations and the mobile home park ordinance, here's what I can do. So the mobile home park ordinance lists that you can have your spaces for rent has to be a minimum of 4,500 square feet. So, he would need to do the math to figure, out what he could do. He would also need to take into account, he's going to need detention because it's 20-something acres of property, obviously. Take into account roadways, because he's got to get to those spots, right? And all the other things that the mobile home park ordinance takes into account. So the only thing that the request is only to rezone the property, not, at this point in time, I have no idea what his plans are. I'll be honest with you.
If this was approved, if this rezoning was approved, could he do anything else with the property other than just develop a mobile home park?
No, the R4 zoning district is very restrictive, I guess you could say. It only allows mobile homes. And then with the T1 designation, it would only allow for a rental mobile home park. Now, if he decided, let's just say 5 years from now, a developer approaches him and says, look, I want your property because I want to put a subdivision there, then they would have to come through the process and have the property rezoned to allow for single family detached. Or if they wanted to put an apartment complex, have it rezoned for an apartment complex. So depending on what somebody wanted to do with the property, kind of depends on what the zoning district will need to be.
All of the concerns that we heard from the residents today regarding the roads, the flooding, the water pressure, would all of that be addressed in the planning phase with the ordinance that we passed last year?
So that would be addressed in both. It's kind of a twofold thing. So you have the subdivision regulations that address certain things, and then you have the mobile home park ordinance that address certain things. So they work in conjunction together. How it would work is if he decided to come in tomorrow and said, here's my plan, this is what I want to do on my 20 acres. I need to go through the platting process. He would go to the planning commission. So he would make that application. Part of the application process is a review process. So it will go out to the water district. In this case, it would be Coto Water. If it's private sewer, in this case, it's going to have to it would have to be a community type treatment system. It will go to the Board of Health for review for them to make comments accordingly. And their comment would be something general. You need to turn your construction plans in to the Department of Health and Hospitals, their engineering section, to make sure that what you're doing as far as your sewer treatment plant functions and does so properly according to what state regulation is. Public Works also reviews that plat. The fire department reviews the plat. CLECO, trying to think a list of people who get the plat, but it's a list that get it. We send it to LawCo also. So even though you may not have any skin in the game, for lack of a better term, they still get copies of because they're on the review committee, so they still get copies. The sewer district would get copies. In this case, you don't have sewer district out there, the Board of Health picks up on it. So that's why everybody kind of just gets a copy, whether or not it falls within their jurisdiction, so everybody's seeing the same thing. Everybody makes those comments accordingly. My office even reviews it. In this case, we would be reviewing it for subdivision, but we would also be reviewing it with the mobile home park ordinance to make sure it meets all of those regulations. And so all entities would make comments accordingly, whether it be, in my case, between the subdivision regulations and the mobile home park ordinance. In the case of these external agencies, Coto Water may come back and say, you know what, we can't serve him. We don't have the water lines and we don't have the water pressure. So they could come back and say, we can't serve him. And then Mr. Thibodeau would have to make the decision, I can't do this because I can't get water. Or he'd have to go to the Board of Health to find out if he could even put in some type of private well system. Board of Health has standards that usually says if you can be served by a municipal agency, they're not going to let you put in those private systems, right? So those are all things that will come up during that review time. Then it goes in front of the Planning Commission for them to either approve, deny. They may add conditions to what have already been done. So I know a lot of concerns are about traffic. We don't necessarily have a regulation in the subdivision regs for traffic issues, but they could, just like you guys could, once it got to you guys, you could add, you know what, there are a lot of people who have traffic concerns, and we understand that those roads, are going to have lots and lots of traffic, more than what they probably get now, depending on how many units go in there. So we want what's called a traffic impact analysis. So that's done by a traffic engineer who goes out and evaluates based upon what he's asking to do and what is the infrastructure in there to say, okay, well, you know what, based upon your traffic and the traffic patterns, you know, on Freeman Road, we want you to add a decel lane or a left turn lane or something like that. So those are, even though the regulations don't address that, both the commission and I think you guys have the, you know, the capacity to add that type of condition. So that's kind of the planning side of it in a broad-based nutshell.
But that doesn't get addressed in zoning. That gets addressed in planning.
Right. Those types of things do get addressed in planning because that's when you get down, I guess you could say, to the nitty-gritty where we know, okay, this is the plan we have in front of us. Because let's say he says he wants to do 500 lots. Well, we're going to come back and we're going to say, yeah, you can't do that. You don't meet the density. You don't have enough acreage to do those 500 lots. You only have the acreage to do X number of lots, right? So that's kind of where that planning side comes in, because at that point in time, we have a plan in front of us and we know exactly what he wants to do, and we can look at the regulations and say, okay, yes, he can do that, or no, he can't. And or part of the review process is for those other agencies to say, yes, he can do this because we can handle it. We have the infrastructure out there, or no, we don't.
And it's my understanding that this did not get denied by the commission. It just, because commission members abstained from voting, it failed to get enough votes to pass.
Right. So the motion was to approve the rezoning. There were 7 members there that night. Yeah, 7 members. 3 abstained from voting, so they did not cast a yes or a no vote. The 4 members that did vote voted yes for the rezoning, but because you didn't have the way their bylaws are set up, because you did not have a 5th person to cast a yes or a no vote, the motion failed, thus constituting a denial.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Other
You're welcome.
council members may have some questions after I'm done, but I just want to point out to my fellow council members that we worked very hard last year, and in March we passed a 26-page mobile home ordinance. I'm sure y'all are familiar with it. But there's one provision in particular under the development and improvement section that I would like to read, not only for the benefit of the council members, but also for the benefit of the audience and the 107 people who filed this petition, so that they know what can come in the future. And Mr. Thibodeau, he needs to be aware of that as well. There's a section that says that when the site plans are being reviewed, things that are being considered or the present conditions and future growth of the area and its environments, which will be in accordance with the present and future needs, will best promote health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, and general welfare, as well as efficiency and economy in the process of development, including, among other things, adequate provisions for traffic, the promotion of safety from fire or other dangers, adequate provision for light and air, the promotion of the healthful and convenient distribution of population, the promotion of good civic design and arrangement, wise and efficient expenditures of public funds, the adequate provisions of public utilities and other public requirements, and vehicular parking. In general, to provide a better quality of life for the residents of the parish by allowing for better compatibility of land uses in the parish. So I hear all of your concerns, and as the individuals that I spoke with individually, I'll say again, all of your concerns are valid concerns, and I don't want you to think that I'm discounting any of your concerns because I hear them. I just think that the time that we are to address them is when those plans come before us, if they ever come before us. This language was very specifically put in here because previously we didn't have anything to hang our hat on, and we ended up in a lawsuit. So we made sure that we had language in here that the general quality of life for all residents of Iberia Parish can be taken into consideration, and our hands are not tied in the planning process. So I just wanted to bring that out in the ordinance. That's it for now.
Next up, Mr. Tommy Landry. Okay. Next up, Mr. Pollard.
Mr. Chairman, can you explain to me, make me understand, Miss Mary Thibodeau said that all the resident, Babineau, I'm sorry, all the resident had wells over there. Now, I'm hearing that they have Coteau water. Which one do they have? Both?
It would be a combination.
Yeah, down Orange Farm Road, there are no, water doesn't go there. So all of these people, that's the area that this picture that flooded this forest you can see, okay? So yeah, those are all in water wells.
Okay.
That's the area where the water goes down into that area, you know, it maybe just floods out there, and what's in that water is going out, and if they have water wells, it's going out.
Okay, thank you.
That's good. Okay. Next up, Mr. Malcharam.
Sarah, I'm curious, you came from a different municipality. How did they handle their zoning issues? Were there standards that you had to follow, like the planning side of it, or is it just an opinion of like right here, 14 people? How is that addressed? I mean, you know, it looked like zoning issues should almost have a standard that you meet this, and kind of like the planning side of it. Otherwise, what we're looking at is just an opinion of 14 people, you know?
So, I'm gonna say it's similar to how, you know, you guys are handling it here. They, you know, you would make your application to the zoning commission to rezone property, right? Whatever that would be. And then they would take into account, you know, number one, are we spot zoning? Because you can't do that, it's illegal. So if you have, you know, 100 acres of agricultural and you want to go smack dab in the middle of that 100 acres and you want to rezone it to commercial, you can't do that. It's spot zoning and it's considered illegal. So they would take into account the area, you know, to see if there's other zoning districts like that. Obviously, if you had, you know, and that's going to be anywhere. If you're on the fringe of maybe where you have some commercial and you've got some mixed residential and maybe some old industrial that was there, you know, for before you had zoning, and somebody wants to come in and rezone industrial, well, they're going to look at that and say, okay, well, you know, does it fit into the area? You know, unfortunately with zoning, it's kind of, and the planning side of it, it's a chicken and an egg thing, right? So as much as I would love to say, before you can have this property rezoned, we need to see your plan, I can't plat and or plan something that's not allowed in the zoning district. So it's, you know, it is to some extent, I don't want to say it's the opinion of 14 people, 9 people, 10 people, whatever it is, but there, you know, I would love to say I want your plan, but I can't because he's not allowed in that zoning district. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, and that's what the public hearing process is for. I mean, we do notify, you know, the way it's set up is we notify adjacent and second adjacent property owners for the people who, are the rezoned area, plus there's signs, plus there's ads in the paper, you know, that type of stuff. And I mean, that's what this is all about, is so you can hear what both the person who's asking to have their property rezoned and the neighboring, you know, people have to say.
Now, the members that abstained from voting, did they have a personal conflict in it to where they didn't vote, or they just didn't vote?
I'll be honest with you, only one, and it's been a couple months, so my memory's not all that good, but I want to say only one of them really said that he didn't have enough information to make an informed vote, and that's why he abstained. I don't remember the other two you know, saying anything why they were abstaining.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, if one of you, I know y'all not in public hearing, but if one of the council members asked that, if I could respond, then the point of order says.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My time.
Well, from what I'm hearing her say, then there's really no need for rezoning. Because if I take my property as it is now, which is, let's just say residential property, okay? And I wanna change its classification to industrial. There's no plans there. You can't deny it on the grounds of what's there now. So actually, what I'm hearing is that you're not gonna deny any rezoning request. It's just gotta go to planning. Because if I got a residential, a 4-acre residential property and I wanna rezone it to industrial, I don't have no plans out there. I may wanna bulldoze the whole thing and put an industrial deal. So you have to give me my rezoning. So I think the precedent y'all setting right there, and Natalie, I appreciate all the work y'all done fixing this thing up. But there's something missing in that zoning part. Because actually, you can't turn anybody away to rezone that property. Looking at it like she stated it, that the time is gonna come during planning. Am I reading it wrong or am I reading it right?
Would you have to change
I
it?
mean, if I want to rezone it to industrial and I don't have to say where I'm gonna put things at until the planning section comes up. And they say, well, you can't rezone that. The plans ain't out there. How you know I'm not gonna, I may bulldoze it all down, you know? So there's a piece of that puzzle that's missing. And if I'm reading it wrong, then please somebody tell me.
Okay, Mr. Shealy?
I'd like to add to what Sarah said. I'd like to state it a little bit differently. First of all, I don't believe that approval of a rezoning request is automatic. You have the right to make that decision. There are certain things that should go into that decision making. The first thing is whether or not the request is consistent with a comprehensive, well-considered plan, if you have one. You have a comprehensive plan, I'll admit to that. Was it well considered? Maybe, maybe not, when you consider how it was developed. The second thing that you have to look at is the zone change consistent with the surrounding uses? Is the zone change consistent with orderly development of the public services? That's when I think you can get into traffic concerns, flooding, sewer, water, traffic patterns. Those things can be part, they are certainly part of planning also, but they can be a part of, not your deciding, but a part of your consideration. Then one other thing is that anytime you're talking about high-density residential versus low-density residential, you can always consider whether or not there's a need for more high-density residential areas, or whether there are sufficient high-density areas that exist within the parish, exist within your current zoning classifications to take care of that need. Sarah, do you disagree?
No, I don't.
I just want to.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. And again, you have the right to deny any rezoning. And if I gave the impression otherwise, then I apologize for that. But you have the right to deny any rezoning based on whether it's your opinion or, true and hard facts. But I don't think that anybody has the right to just think that they're going to have their property rezoned, and in the case that Mr. Neri gave, more than likely the answer to his rezoning, if he's in the middle of residential, is going to be absolutely not, and the staff would not recommend that due to the fact that it is industrial in the middle of residential, and it would be considered a spot rezoning, which is illegal under the eyes of the law. And I'm sure Mr. Shealy can probably get way more into the legal than I can as to why it is that way, but it is, so.
Okay. Mr. Montreal, you still have the floor? Okay. Next up, we have Mr. Brown. No. Mr. Brown?
Yeah. This not the first time that I had to be before a bunch of people resident coming in and forcing their complaint about what they wanted in their neighborhood. This just didn't start just a couple of years ago. Actually, when I first got on the council, this was the way we conducted business. It was a resident come saying, I don't want this industrial in my neighborhood. That's when we started looking at rural zoning. Never you were on the council when that came up. That was in somewhere around 2009. And it was mainly looked at, some of the things that we really heard was, I don't want it in my backyard, and I just don't want it. So that's why we did the rural zoning, so that this thing could be done orderly and let it pass through planning and zoning, and then go to the next phase for us to decide on what happened. So it seemed like we right back to everybody's coming and saying, I don't want it in my backyard, and I thought we was trying to eliminate that.
That's it, Mr. Brown. Next up, Mr. Napier.
Mr. Brown, I agree with what you said, and Natalie said it real good too. I understand. I really do. I didn't say nothing while y'all were up there. I'd appreciate it if you'd let me speak, please. But just a couple things to bring up. And look, there was a lot of people hurt in the 2016 flood. Not just in Coteau, but a big part of Louisiana, and not just there in Iberia Parish. So to bring that up, comparing to Mr. Thibodeau's trailer park, to me, in my book, you can't do that, because I think you were going to flood whether that trailer park was there or not. And to say that an extension to a trailer park is going to ruin the quality of life. We went through this in Nuri. I respect you a lot. You know that this is nothing personal, but to say that, so many people live in good people live in trailer parks, live in trailers. So to bring that up, to me that wasn't right neither. We had, like Natalie said, this came up before, something like this came up before us in a couple years ago, and this guy was doing a nice trailer park, and it ended up, we denied it, and he was in the planning stages, and we ended up in court. So if things are done right, that's why we got rules and regs, and it's done right, and it's done by everything by the book, and the planning commission comes back and says he's done everything by the book with DEQ and everywhere else, who are we to deny this guy that opportunity? And we not even there. Again, we're gonna go back to, we here just to rezone his property. Chances are we might be looking at this down the line, but tonight is just about rezoning. I'm going to support that, and I'm going to make a substitute motion, if I could, Andy, here, saying that I'd like to change the word deny to approve, and so that we don't get mixed up again. My substitute motion is that we approve the reclassification for Mr. Thibodeau on that piece of property.
Okay. With that substitute motion, I'm looking for a second. I have a second by Ms. Broussard. Okay, Mr. Andy, I was coming to you.
I keep hearing referring to the lawsuit. I want to make sure that everybody understands that lawsuit had nothing to do with zoning.
Correct.
That was a lawsuit on the planning side, alleging that there was overreach on the planning side, had nothing to do with zoning, so that's not.
And I stated that.
I just
Yeah.
want to make that clear, it's not relevant to zoning.
Okay, so I have a substitute motion on the floor, changing the wording from denying to approving the ordinance, the reclassification request of the property of Kenneth Thibodeau. Ms. Broussard, you have the second. Do you have any comments? No. No further?
I'm just still concerned about the bottom, the last line of the request failed to pass Iberia Parish zoning. Should we change more than just the denial?
I don't believe. I think all we need to do,
we
an
good with
ordinance
that?
approving that, that it did fail with the zoning
Okay,
commission.
all right, that's
That's
fine.
correct, Andy?
I just want to make sure we don't complicate
Okay,
things.
so no further discussion. We're voting on a substitution. Roll call. Berwick. That motion passes. The substitute. Okay, summary number 4938, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 general fund budget of revenues and expenditures as amended. I need a motion from Mr. Brown, a second from Mr. Olivier. Mr. Brown? Mr. Olivier?
I think the administration made all the necessary changes that we asked for. And I vote that the council members approve that particular budget.
Okay, Mr. Gonsalas.
I'll waive.
Okay, Mr. Goshasan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul. Oh, funny. Mr. Chairman, I will not be in support of this fund budget tonight, the general fund. I know a lot of us have looked at the royalty and the crucial. You want to wait a second till it clear out, or?
Okay. Hold it. Okay, Mr. Goshasan.
I know we've had discussion over the several weeks about the problems in the royalty, with money drying up and expenses and those nature. It's the same things happening in the general fund. I just want to give an example. At the end of 2017, we all received the same audit from an independent auditor that in 2013 we brought in $5 million. In 2017 we brought in $5.2 million. So there's been a little bit of change, not much to consider the amount. In 2013, when things were great, we brought in we expended $5.3 million. At the end of 2017, the parish government expended $6.8 million. In 2013, the total general fund balance was $4 million. By the end of 2017, that number had shrunk to $1.4 million. So at the rate that we're at, if you can look at, and I have the chart here, pass it around, you got this from your audit, we having the same issues in the general fund. It's running broke, it's running dry, and I think that's something that we need to look further into. And and there's other reasons, but just to give you the fact, a lot of people are saying that taxes have been down, but just to say, in the total governmental revenues, we've been pretty good. In 2017, we brought in $28 million, considering the fact that in 2016 we brought in $26 million. So the numbers are going up. The problem is the expenses. We're spending more than we're taking in, and we need to get that under control. And I'll give one more number, and then I'll set it down to anyone else. In 2013, again, when all that thing, $100 barrel oil, we had a total expenses in the government of $36.1 million. In 2017, we spent $36 million, and yet we only took in $28 million. So at the end of the day, it's unsustainable, and I think that we need to look further into more cuts. And it's not just administration; it's all of us as a whole. That we've got serious problems that I think we need to look into before just passing these budgets. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. A lot of times the reason you'll have spending more is you might have a project that was moved over, so you got the money in 1 year, and 3 years later you're spending it. So
Agree with you, Mr. Chairman, but when you look at revenues in congest with what we're taking in and spending, it's I mean, look at it, Paul. I mean, you can tell the chart right here. The high bar is just continuing to go down in the revenues, in the fund balance, but yet the revenues of the expenses continue to go up. I mean, you can call it parish projects all you want, carryovers, but I mean, at the end of the day, again, I want to say, if I took in 28 million and I spent 36 million, it's hard to determine that that's just projects. It's just.
Ms. Richard?
Actually, Kim was gonna go on it.
Just a couple of the things, like relative to the general fund, the differences between, like comparing 17's numbers to those prior years. In 17, we had that one-time accounting adjustment. And so that would have spiked your expenditure because that's how it's reported. So if you back that off, and then that's also accounted for in that change in the fund balance. So that was about 1.7, 1.8 million. So if you back that off, things are probably more so in line.
Okay, so if you still back it off, let's just say you do, we're still spending 5.8 million and we only have 1.4 million in fund balance left at the end of 2017. According to, I mean, this is the audit. I mean, I didn't make it up. I mean, it came the same packet that we all got. I mean, you can see the trend is going down in the revenues.
But relative to the 6.8 in expense, if you back off that 1.8, you're more in line with the 5 million in
Jim, I understand what you're saying, but at the end of the day, the number is
I'm
the
just trying
number's
to
the
give
number.
you additional information. Like, I don't know if you remember that one time.
Oh,
I
didn't vote for it. Yeah, I
that's
definitely
gonna-
remember it. Yeah, I did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So no further discussion. Oh, you finished, Mr. Richard? Okay, no further discussion. We're voting on 4938. Roll call. Chance, I'll go ahead and push it through. That motion passes. Summary number 4939, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 16th JDC Junior Witness Fees Fund budget of revenues and expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Gonsalas, a second by Mr. Brown. Mr. Gonsalas?
I waive.
Mr. Brown? No further discussion. Roll call. Go ahead. That motion passes. Summary number 4940, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2018 Road District Number 10 Maintenance Fund budget of revenues and expenditures as amended. I have a motion by Mr. Olivier, a second by Michael Landry. Mr. Olivier.
Thank you, Paul. Larry, you was asked to adjust that budget $475,000. You did it. And you came back actually with a small surplus at the end of that day. So you did a good job with that budget, and I think the council should support it. Thank you. That's it, Paul.
Okay, Michael Landry.
I waive.
Okay, no further discussion. Oh, we have Ms. Broussard.
I have some questions with regard to, it appears to be there a lot of shifting in the employees, and shifting some of the expenses to the parish-wide drainage.
Yeah, actually, we did a whole lot of things. When you take a look at it, we not only reduced the budget by the $475,000 that you asked, but you also have a surplus there. And you also have a surplus in drainage as well. And I know employees is gonna be a big deal, but we actually subtract $257,000 in employee salaries and benefits. When you take a look at your budget and you're gonna go line by line, you can actually see exactly what we did. So no, it wasn't that. But we did have, we did have an employee that, I don't wanna give us, we did have an employee that was actually being billed 2 roads that did catch basins and, bulkheads, I think it was.
I think the answer is you have, in drainage, you have a further reduction of the deficit by something like $5,000.
You have
on the
it
net effect. So it
in
did
both.
not increase the expense in that budget.
In either budget.
It actually reduced it.
In both budgets.
Explain how you get to that.
To the 475?
No,
go ahead, Scott.
that parish-wide drainage is reduced as well.
Let Kim explain it, she's the director.
So the overall, the budget that was originally submitted to the council for parish-wide drainage had a $684,000 deficit. The adjustments that were prepared by council adjusted that deficit down to $534,000. There was an error in the budget that was originally submitted by us to you, in the amount of $10,000. The transfer back to the general fund to cover the stormwater drainage operations was included on the general fund side and not included on parish-wide drainage's side. Like, general fund was done last, and I didn't go back to adjust, to correct that. So that $10,000 adjustment needs to be posted there. So the original, I guess the revised deficit after the adjustments that y'all would have made would have been 544, and then the budget that was presented to you today shows a deficit of 539. So it's approximately 5,000 less.
I'm just confused at how y'all are working the numbers. And I mean, what I'm seeing is it's showing that some of the employees were moved from the road district to the parish-wide drainage.
Exactly, I just said that. You just moved to, exactly.
And I'm seeing that we don't have a reduction in it. The reductions that came from parish-wide drainage came from the reductions that the council made because we were trying to not go into the fund balance as much as we were.
And you're not. You still have a reduction in the drainage, like I'm saying, about $5,000, even more than what you actually presented.
Right.
Right.
But, I mean, when we had a meeting with you,
That
you
meeting
were.
didn't count. Remember, y'all changed it. Y'all didn't want that anymore. Y'all wanted the 475. But go ahead. I thought that's what we had said. Y'all wanted to subtract 475.
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And I appreciate the fact that it was done, but
Okay.
I'm very confused about the switch to parish-wide drainage because when we had the meeting with you, that was proposed and you, in no uncertain terms, said the parish-wide drainage fund can't sustain it.
We're not.
So that's why, I mean,
Natalie,
it
we
feels to
subtracted-
me,
Okay, go
correct
ahead.
me if I'm wrong, but
Okay.
it feels to me that y'all took the reductions that we made in parish-wide drainage and took advantage of that to use the 475.
No.
To take
and
the 475
no,
out
we
of the
didn't. And I
budget.
can't explain it any better than what I'm doing, so Kim, you might have to help me.
We didn't add anything. So the only thing that we're doing is we have to correct the $10,000 because that money needs to be transferred because your transfers have to balance. So that part of it needs to be corrected. But even after that, the deficit is the 539. The amount that y'all originally had was like 544.
Right.
So that's on the drainage fund.
Right.
So the deficit amount is still approximately the same.
So how many employees are being laid off as a result of these cuts?
Do you really want to discuss personnel stuff right here, right now? How many employees?
I don't think we should.
I don't want to know
I understand that.
specifically, but I
But
mean.
we gave you the numbers, Natalie, as far as the employees. Do you really want to start getting into where they're coming from and all this good stuff?
Well, with all due respect, and I'm not one to try and blow bullets or anything like
Huh?
that, but had I gotten this before 3 o'clock
Okay.
today,
Give it to her, Kim.
maybe
Give her
I
the number.
could have
Okay.
had time to
We'll give 'em to you.
act individually or privately and not have to do it. But if
Okay.
I have to vote on it
Yeah.
tonight, I need to know
Give
the
her the number of
information.
employees.
There'll be 6 employees that are left over in the road fund. And I believe there were originally 13 in the budget that was submitted to you. You counting the employees on the Manning chart?
Mhm.
So some of them are at 25%, if you look at that. And so what we try to do is be fair and understand that, there would be possibly a burden between parish-wide drainage and roads. And so understand that relative to parish-wide drainage, we have to live within the tax ordinance. And so you can't pay somebody 100% out of parish-wide drainage and them also be sharing road duties.
Right.
And so we looked at it from that perspective and the amount of the expenses that we would be spending and probably, the bulk of their duties would be in parish-wide drainage. So there is some cost sharing that is going on. So even with all of that and the cost shared relationship, so like I counted the 6 employees, those are the 6, like the full positions or the 6 employees. I didn't overlap them. The full position was counted in drainage. That quarter percentage, those positions I did not count as positions per se, even though they would have some shared responsibilities.
And you said originally there were 13?
13, yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's all I have for right now.
Yeah, that's what she just said. Is that it, Ms. Broussard?
Mhm.
Okay, Mr. Gustafson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, you know, I know we went out for a tax and the people overwhelmingly struck it down 2-1. I just want to clarify out there that our income for roads expectantly in 2018 is projected to be 1.6 million. That's what we're collecting in the fund for roads, not 300,000. I think there was a misconception out there. That's the amount of money that we're applying to it. The rest of the money is going to different, you know, personnel services, road maintenance, equipment maintenance. So we are taking in 1.6 million. Is that correct, Kim? Is it expected 1.6 million in 2018?
18, yes, that's projected.
In the road district, okay. So I just want to first clarify that. Number two, Kim, under the bridges, did it look like we moved personnel from there to the drainage fund, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So do we have enough to take care of the bridges that, I know we're going from 1 to 2, or from 2 to 1. I mean, have we set that out to make sure that we don't get in the bond that we were in with those bridges?
I can't answer that, you know.
Well, I mean,
relative to the,
there's 4 people sitting there, somebody can. I guess I'll move on to the next one.
That's 600,000.
We moved an employee from the bridges. How will that affect us going out and evaluating the bridges?
No, that employee, I think that's gonna be better answered by Herman. We're gonna have to do a lot of things to make this work, but we're actually doing right now.
So you don't think it'll affect the bridges?
Herman, would you answer that one? We got a lot we doing to make these cuts that we are making right now.
Okay, the employee that was moved from roads to parish-wide in bridges. That employee basically construct bulkheads, culvert projects, catch basins, that typical work. That employee doesn't go out and inspect bridges or.
So that was one of the ones that we found that was being charged back to roads? Okay,
Right,
so,
that-
all right, that makes sense now. Okay, thank you, Herman, I appreciate it.
All right.
This, on employee 1898, originally, was that employee paid 100%? I know I see 75, and then the other 75% was parish-wide drainage, correct?
It's.
That's in the road
like
district. Did we just move, shift her a little bit?
Yes.
Okay. So she'll be assisting with both now drainage?
Have to.
Okay. And then it looks like we added employee 1170 on this line item, and then the other 75 is in parish-wide, correct?
1170?
Was that not a move also? I'm just trying to understand.
Right, all of the ones that have 25% were not previously reported in the, and have, you know, not ever been in the past. We tried to take like that core group that provides services
Okay.
to both and share it is.
Okay, all right. I'm good, thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Olivier?
I just want to touch on the drainage budget. Natalie mentioned some things about how did Larry juggle things around. But basically, when we, in committee, we asked Larry in drainage to change the repair, RM building change to $10,000. He did that. We asked him to change the RM equipment to $400,000. He did that. We asked him to change R&M others to $150,000. He did that. We asked him to change travel to $1,000. He did that. We asked him to change the uniform, change to $5,000. He actually changed it to $4,200. We asked him to change the solid consents. What is this? $75,000. It's still $75,000. So he did what we asked him to do with the budget, as far as making the necessary cuts. And I think he has a great budget. Y'all did a great job.
It's
doing
not
it.
gonna be easy to
And you
make it
actually
through the
gave us
year.
a better fund balance
It is.
in drainage than we had before.
You do.
Okay, so I appreciate the effort y'all put into that, and y'all did a fantastic job, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Goshasan.
Yeah, I just want to respond to Mr. Eugene. Mr. Eugene, the reason why I'm asking the questions is I didn't get to look at this budget. I think I received it at 3:30.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask some questions on that. I'm not saying that he didn't do a good job in the cuts that we asked him to do. It's just kind of hard to go and just make a vote without knowing all the facts of what happened in the shifts. I don't have the ability to just look at it all day or have a 2-week preparation to go and look at the budget and what was done. So I just want to clarify that with you right now, just for the record.
And I understand that, if I can.
Thank you.
And we just finished this afternoon around 1:30, just so you know. So we got it to you like you asked, but we just finished this. In fact, I was trying to get it to you earlier this morning. I had spoken to Paul about that.
All our issues here, it's tough on us, I'm looking at the royalty revenues, 2008, 6.7, 9, 6.8, 10, 6, 11, 6, 12, 5, 13, 5.4, 14, 4.2. It goes all the way down to 900,000. Started 6.7 million, now we're 900,000. I think we're getting the cuts that we need. There's probably no limit to what we could cut. I think it's going to end up being a balancing act between the trying to give a service and trying to be fiscally responsible. I'm as sorry for the workers as it is. It's tough, but this is the reality of where we are.
That's exactly right. And Paul, if I can,
sure,
we will continue to have to look at this budget daily. Because things are not changing per se for the better. So we're going to have to continue to do exactly what we're doing. Look at this budget on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And if it looked like something changing, believe me, I'll come back to you.
And I would hope that in April or May, we can do budget adjustments because things have gotten so good.
That would be nice.
Yeah. Mr. Gonsalas.
Yeah, just, during economic hard times, you create harsh situations where, like any other business, you got to make tough decisions. And I truly respect the decisions you made with this budget, because I think from when the discussion and the rhetoric we went back and forth with, you responded to a positive turnaround.
Thank you.
And it's not going to be easy on you. It's not going to be easy on us. But, I look forward to amending this budget in the near future. But to be proactive instead of reactive is very, very important in the budgeting process. And I think these numbers reflect that the administration stepped up to the plate in this budget and did what we requested, and I can respect that. And I'm going to support it the way it is today.
Thank you. And I would just like to say one thing. Please look at your budget and see how much money we have in the line item for materials. And keep that in mind for the 12 months that we're going to be dealing with. In that budget for the line item for the materials, we have $200,000.
I know, and I know
For the
how
year.
far 350 went, so I know where
Exactly.
2 is going to
So
stop.
just, we're going to do everything we can, so thank you all.
Ms. Broussard?
Yeah, just to respond to Mr. Olivier and Mr. Richard, Mr. Olivier, I'm very well aware that the changes that this council passed in committee were made in the budget by the administration, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the fact that the administration did come back, leaving the $475,000 in the royalty fund, and respects the problem that the royalty fund has. It's very tough to make these kind of decisions and vote on these things when you don't have the opportunity to look line item by line item and digest it and process it and understand it. And that's where I am now. And I do appreciate the efforts. I know this is tough, and I know that it probably did take y'all to 1:30 today, and you still don't have all the answers. And y'all gonna be trying to figure it out and
Throughout
trying
the
to
year.
figure out how to do it tomorrow and the next day and the next day. I get that. I do. We have the same restraints to try and educate ourselves and make informed decisions.
I couldn't agree more.
Is that it, Ms. Broussard?
Yes.
Michael Landry.
I'm gonna tell you, I think the administration did a great job, because I was coming here tonight looking for some bad cuts, and I've spoken to Larry, I've spoken to most everybody on this council, and y'all know how I felt, because I didn't want to see anybody laid off. I didn't
That's it.
want to see nothing, and I think the citizens of Iberia Parish told us they didn't want no taxes, no whatever. And I think what we came here tonight, I'm very surprised. And hopefully everybody say kicking the can down the road. I think the can was kicked back to us on this one. So we need to accept this one and move on. That's all.
Okay, Mr. Dugas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know all of y'all have heard in the news lately that GM is having some severe problems. They're laying off a lot of people.
Yep.
And they're closing some plants. It's unfortunate that the people that get cut in these situations are the ones that can afford it the least. Sometimes when we make cuts, we gotta not start at the bottom at all time and maybe start at the top and look at some of these, might be some areas to cut costs. So just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
And I appreciate that. But when you're gonna find out the cuts, you may be surprised.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Goshisar.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to go back to say, I mean, this has been a tough decision for everybody. I mean, we don't want to tell people we have to lay them off. We don't want to tell people we can't provide that service. But when the money runs out, I mean, what is there left to do? And it's nothing against the administration. I'm gonna tell you, we probably possibly got dealt the worst cards we could have gotten dealt. And it's not anyone previous to us. I'm not saying anything about previous administrations of council, but you can look at just the economy, how bad we've been hit. I mean, I think Mr. Landry said it in the last meeting. I mean, we were, number 7 in the city that's not recovering or taking too long. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, look, this is a tough decision to sit here and make. But I can tell you, I think we're in good hands knowing that the council's bird-eyed and everything, and that the administration's doing the same thing.
Okay, thank you.
But tonight, I won't support the budget because the fact is I have not been able to look at every line item in the road district. But Larry, I do appreciate you stepping up to the plate and making the cuts that you did.
Appreciate you.
Okay, no further discussion. We're voting on 4940. Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4941, introduced by Parish President, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Parish-wide Drainage Maintenance Fund of budget of revenues and expenditures as amended. I have a motion by Mr. Trahan, a second by Michael Landry. Mr. Trahan.
Wait.
Mr. Michael Landry. Mr. Goshisam.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record again, as I said before in Road District 10, I'm going to say again here, I got this budget last minute and I wasn't able to look at all of the, I guess, the changes, if you will, and that will reflect my vote of a no vote.
Okay, that's accepted. No further comments. Roll call.
That for the record.
That motion passes. Summary number 4942, introduced by the Parish President, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Public Library Board Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as amended. I have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Brown? Mr. Olivier? Yes. No further discussion. Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4943, introduced by the Parish President, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Iberia Parish Fire Protection District Number 1 Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as submitted. I have a motion by Michael Landry, a second by Lloyd Brown. Michael Landry. Mr. Brown? No further discussion. Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4944, introduced by Parish President, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Iberia Parish Rabies Control Program Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as amended. Have a motion by Mr. Gonsalves, a second by Mr. Goshisam. Mr. Gonsalves?
I waive.
Mr. Goshisam?
Mr. Chairman, I guess I'd like to turn to the administration. I mean, we had discussions about certain things they were going to come back with from the last committee meeting as far as the animal shelter. No, I thought we were going to talk about some of the fixes on the building with the liability issues.
They've done some core sampling on some of the floors to see if we can put epoxy on them. Donna and I also met with a representative from our workers' comp group that has come up with some ideas on some things that we can do from a safety perspective. So we're trying to implement some of those things as we move forward.
Can you
those problems.
say a few things like what in general?
Well, it's the slips and trip areas and things like that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call up the director of that building, if we can, please.
That's fine, and Ms. Sonia's here, but
She's
before we go any further, I want to let y'all know that on this budget, we don't have a balanced budget. We have revenues of $435,916, and we have expenditures of $435,516. So we have a $400 actually increase in revenue. So we either got to take revenue out or. That's right. So y'all got to move $400.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. That's right. That's not too bad of a problem.
That's correct.
Sonia, obviously, I've asked Scott, some of the things that we need to do to protect y'all, and I know it's been said that the council's been pushing for a new building. I want to clear that for the record. That's never been said. That came from the administration that they were looking at a new building. We're looking at making sure that building's secure for you and the animals in there. Have they met all the needs that needed to be done in there as far as for your safety and the animals?
We have had someone come out to look and see what we can do.
Exactly.
And that's where we stand right now.
So as far as Mr. Gesser and the amount of money budgeted in there, we don't know exactly what the intel of that is because I've asked for a report.
Actually, tell them about the lady from LSU, the property that we're gonna go look at LSU.
I brought in the shelter medicine director at LSU,
Good.
and she suggested we go look at the new shelter companion animal that was paid for mostly by donations and private funds. She estimated renovating. She gave us her ballpark figure, which I don't know that she's in any position to guess a figure, but she did give us many suggestions that we need to do just to bring it up to a standard, a minimum standard level.
And just for the record, do you feel that the council's changes as far as the training for personnel and the food will be sufficient enough for 2019?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Anything else you want to add? Or Mr. Chairman, I'm okay to move with it and make the budget adjustment of 400.
Okay.
I guess if she wants to recommend.
Let me scan through it. 400.
We could put it in training if you
I'd
want.
have to kind of look at.
How about the feed and?
No.
No, not the feed, for sure.
How about training? $400 more?
Probably, yeah.
Is that okay with y'all? $400 more in training?
We can always come back and adjust that.
Whatever you
Yeah.
think.
I wouldn't take from building fund.
So, Ms. Gossa, you're making that substitute motion to 400? Okay.
No, I heard someone said the building fund.
Oh.
I said no.
No, it's adding.
It's
Oh,
adding to it.
adding.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Adding to
thought
it.
you were taking away. Well,
No,
that's
no.
different.
Just let them add.
Yeah, well, wherever you want.
What is your greatest need?
Food.
Okay. I'm fine with putting it in food. That's good.
So the substitute motion is
So I'm in.
$400 into the feed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You finished, Mr. Gossa?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Ms. Broussard?
I'll second that motion.
You second that motion? Okay, so we have a substitute motion adding $400 to the expenditures to balance the budget. No further question. Voting on the substitute. Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4945, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Iberia Parish Health Unit Maintenance Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Gonsalas, a second by Michael Landry. Mr. Gonsalas.
I waive.
Michael Landry. Roll call. Mr. Brown. That motion passes. Summary number 4946. introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Economic Development District Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as amended. I have a motion by Mr. Olivier. I have a second by Michael Landry. Mr. Olivier?
Pass.
Michael Landry? No further discussion. Roll call. That motion passes. Summary 4947, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 solid waste sales tax fund budget of revenues and expenditures as submitted. I have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Gonsalam. Mr. Brown?
Wait.
Mr. Gonsalam? No further discussion. Roll call. The motion passes. Summary number 4948, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 mosquito control drainage improvement sales tax fund budget of revenues and expenditures as submitted. I have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Napier. Mr. Brown?
Waive.
Mr. Napier? Roll call. Mr. Gustafson? Okay, that motion passes. Summary number 4949, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Iberia Parish Communication District Commission Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as submitted. I have a motion by Mr. Trahan, a second by Michael Landry. Mr. Trahan?
Waive.
Michael Landry? No further discussion. Roll call. Okay. You're not
If
up
I can
on the
bring up
screen.
press, if you wouldn't mind coming up. Let me a second. Press, thanks for coming. But, you know, Press, I'm concerned with your budget and the route it's going. I think you're going to make a budget adjustment here in 2019 shortly in committee. If, you know, that building came in over budget, and you're going to take that out of fund balance, do you realize in a couple of years we'll be out of money?
Well, our real problem isn't the building. Our real problem is we now have a $500,000 a year structural deficit, which I'm working on independently. Also, the $149,000 budget adjustment will be offset at least half by grant increases. The way the grant is structured, if you get the grant based on an estimated budget, and FEMA recognizes that when you go out for bid, that'll tell you what the building really costs. So what we will do next, what we're already working on doing, is going back to FEMA through the state, saying, okay, we came in $149,000 over. They immediately recognize, well, now we know what the building actually cost. So right there, that will offset probably about half of this. So the real effect on my fund balance will be no more than $75,000. In addition, we're looking at a number of other lines in construction, concrete, HVAC, things like that. We're developing a list of items we're going to appeal with GOSEP's help, where we think we'll get, I can't guarantee we'll offset 100% of this. I'm going for more than 100%, but at least half of this will be offset by grants. So the effect on the fund balance will be about half of what the number that I'm going to come back on in a few minutes.
Okay. Press, thank you for the job that you're doing. I just look further down the road in this budget.
Oh, we've got a serious problem in about 2 to 3 years that I will be addressing again. But $75,000 isn't going to make a difference one way or another when we've got this new personnel cost of hundreds of thousands a year. That's the one that I'm really going to have to tackle. So whether we do make this adjustment or not won't make a difference to our fiscal health.
Let me ask you, and maybe Kim or Larry can help me. The money that he's looking to get, could that be used out of public building and maintenance? Can it? I mean, it's going to be part of the public building. And the reason I say that is, I mean, you know, I know. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I know Andy was going to say something.
The problem with Press's budget is, you've kicked the can down the road several times on the increase on the cell phone charges. And what's happening is not only do you have this personnel cost, but you now have, but because so many people have given up their landlines for their cell phones, you now have more expensive, specialized equipment to triangulate where those cell phone calls come from. This is a nationwide trend. It's not just a Press trend. And until that number comes up, and look, if I have an accident, I want them to have the equipment that can tell where I am so that they can get emergency help too. That's, I mean, Press, am I incorrect?
Amen, brother.
That's where ultimately, that's where you're going to have to make the structural changes to take care of that personnel cost and that equipment cost.
Okay. Press, you do a good job. My no vote tonight does not reflect any of your performances. It's just at the end of the day, I don't see that fund being, basically what it is putting us in the corner and saying either we raise the fees or we can't make the budget adjustments that we need because the money won't be there. And I mean, people are still hurting. We're talking all over. I mean, every department is taking cuts, and it's hard to keep. I don't know, man. It's a tough decision. Thank you, Press.
Okay, no further subject. Mr. Shealy, you did steal my thunder. I can't wait to get my 40-cent increase so I can not find my $1.20 on my phone bill. But no further discussion. Roll call. Who is it? That motion passes. Summary number 4950, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Criminal Justice Facility Fund budget of revenues and expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Michael Landry, a second by Mr. Olivier. Michael Landry.
Waive.
Mr. Olivier. No further. Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4951, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Iberia Parish Disaster Relief Fund budget of revenues and expenditures as submitted. I have a motion by Mr. Gonsalves, a second by Mr. Brown. Mr. Gonsalves?
Waive.
Mr. Brown?
Waive.
Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4952, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Public Building Maintenance Fund budget of revenues and expenditures as amended. I have a motion by Mr. Olivier, a second by Mr. Gashasam. Mr. Olivier. Mr. Gashasam.
Another fund that I think we're spending way too much money in. One prime example, the Dutch Gosnell building. I think it's, the overbid on that is going to cost tremendous amount of money to this government that we can't sustain, and I'm not going to vote in favor of it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call. And motion passes. Summary number 4953, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 HUD Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program Fund budget of revenues and expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Gonsalves. Mr. Brown?
Waive.
Mr. Gonsalves?
Move. I waive.
No further discussion. Roll call. Mr. Pollard? That motion passes. Summary number 4954, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Adult Drug Court Fund budget of revenues and expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Olivier, a second by Michael Landry. Mr. Olivier?
Waive.
Michael Landry? Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4955, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Recreation and Playground Fund budget of revenues and expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Gonsalas, a second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Gonsalas?
I waive.
Mr. Olivier? Roll call. And motion passes. Summary number 4956, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Iberia Parish Tourist Commission Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Olivier, a second by Michael Landry. Mr. Olivier? Michael Landry? Roll call. Mr. Brown? That motion passes. Summary number 4957, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Industrial Development Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Gonsalas, a second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Gonsalas?
I waive.
Mr. Olivier? Roll call. Just push it, yeah. And motion passes. Summary number 4958, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Bond Redemption Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Olivier, second by Michael Landry. Mr. Olivier?
Waive.
Michael Landry, roll call. Push it. And motion passes. Summary number 4959, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Public Library Sinking Fund Budget as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Brown?
Waive.
Mr. Olivier? Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4960, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Royalty Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as amended. I have a motion by Mr. Gonsalas, a second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Gonsalas?
Quick, Kim, what was the difference, what was the projections off in royalty this year? Based on our projections, where we at now? Yeah, how much?
I think $1,050,000,
Right.
and it's gonna be about, I'm projecting about 938.
Okay, so I
So
knew
about
it was,
100?
it was under the million we had.
Right.
Okay. 1,050,000 to 930, okay.
You good? No further discussion? Roll call? Whoa, Ms. Broussard.
I remember seeing something in the packet that the 475 wasn't amended, that was gonna be done here. Was that just on road district, or was it amended? I just wanna make sure it was
I was
amended.
pretty sure that y'all did pull it out.
Oh, it
Yeah,
would
it's
be.
out.
Okay. That's all I was just trying to
You
make
wouldn't have the
sure.
balance, you wouldn't have the
Wait,
balance you have
maybe
now.
Yeah, no, it's
If
gone.
you took the 475, you know, if they would have took it out.
I think y'all amended it. Y'all amended
Yeah,
it the
amended
night,
it to go back.
on November 8th.
And that was reflected in what
You'd
was
see it.
the ordinance that's passing here.
Correct, yeah. So it's labeled as amended.
Okay.
Yeah, and we had pulled out those other two payments as well and moved that to general fund. That's reflected in there as well.
You good, Ms. Broussard?
Yes, I'm
No
good.
further discussion? Roll call? That motion passes. Summary number 4961, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Texaco Royalty Fund Budget as revenues and expenditures as submitted. I have a motion by Mr. Gonsalas, a second by Mr. Brown. Mr. Gonsalas? Mr. Brown? Roll call. Brian, Ricky? That motion passes. Summary number 4962, introduced by the parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Road Construction Project Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Olivier, second by Mr. Trahan. Mr. Olivier? Mr. Trahan? Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4963, introduced by parish president, an ordinance adopting the 2019 LCDBG Program Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Brown, second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Brown?
Waive.
Mr. Olivier? Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4964, introduced by Parish President, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Sewage District Number 1 Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as amended. Have a motion by Michael Landry, a second by Mr. Trahan. Michael Landry?
Waive.
Mr. Trahan? Roll call. Brian? Ricky? Oh, push it. That motion passes. Summary number 4965, introduced by the Parish President, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Sewage District Number 1 Port of Iberia Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Gonsalas, a second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Gonsalas?
I waive.
Mr. Olivier? Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4966, introduced by the Parish President, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Iberia Parish Airport Authority Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Trahan, a second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Trahan?
Waive.
Mr. Olivier? Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4967, introduced by the Parish President, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Acadiana Fairgrounds Commission Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Gonsalas, a second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Gonsalas?
I waive.
Mr. Olivier? Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4968, introduced by the Parish President, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Waterworks District Number 3 Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as submitted. I have a motion by Mr. Trahan, second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Trahan?
Waive.
Mr. Olivier? Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4969, introduced by the Parish President, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Iberia Parish Risk Management Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Trahan. Mr. Brown?
Waive.
Mr. Trahan, roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4970, introduced by the Parish President, an ordinance adopting the 2019 Unemployment Compensation Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Michael Landry, second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Michael? Mr. Olivier? Roll call. That motion passes. 4971, introduced by Parish President, an ordinance adopting 2019 Iberia Parish Non-Expendable Library Trust Fund Budget of Revenues and Expenditures as submitted. Have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Gonsalas. Mr. Brown? Mr. Gonsalas? Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 4972, introduced by the Parish President, an ordinance adopting the Capital Improvements Fund Budget for 2019 to 2023 is submitted. I have a motion by Mr. Napier, second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Napier? Mr. Olivier? Roll call. And motion passes. Resolutions introduced for public hearing and adoption. Summary number 206, introduced by Paul G. Landry, a resolution changing the joint committee and regular meeting dates of Iberia Parish Council from December 26th to December 19th due to the Christmas holidays. Have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Ms. Broussard. Mr. Brown?
Waive.
Ms. Broussard?
Waive.
Roll call. And motion passes. Summary number 207, introduced by Paul G. Landry, a resolution amending the 2018 Economic Development District Number 1 Fund Budget in the total amount of $372,592 to remove all funding from the Highway 14 sewer project to be returned to the fund balance previous year's line item. I have a motion by Mr. Trahan, a second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Trahan?
Waive.
Mr. Olivier? Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 208, introduced by the clerk of the council, a resolution authorizing travel expenses for one member of the Iberia Parish Council to attend the 2019 NACO Legislative Conference to be held on March 2nd to 6th, 2019 in Washington, D.C. at a total cost of $2,500 per attendee. Have a motion by Michael Landry, a second by Mr. Olivier. Michael?
Waive.
Mr. Olivier? Mr. Napier?
I don't know why when I speak,
We just can't wait to hear what you got to
Glad
say.
y'all love me so much. So I said it in committee. I'm gonna say it again, especially after all that we've gone through today, with the possibility of layoffs, that we're gonna spend even $1 to travel. Nothing against Eugene personally. He's been there twice, if I'm not mistaken. Wants to go again. I understand a seat at the table is, because I've heard that amongst my colleagues. We've got to have a seat at the table. I'm almost positive that the administration's going to be there. And do we lose anything this year if nobody goes? I doubt that seriously. I could be wrong. But to take some money, whatever money, and to send somebody to Washington, D.C. for a few days of conferences, to me, is ludicrous, in my opinion. And I hope this whole council really looks at what's going on with the budget and all. If times are good, look, I haven't been out of the state on these things, but I've been to the state one, and I'm going again, but I'm paying it myself. But I just can't see when we're struggling to find money here and there that we're going to even think about, even that it even got to full council, that we even considering spending this money. So I am definitely not for it, and I would hope my colleagues really think about it before they vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, next up, Mr. Gashasan.
Mr. Chairman, I feel the same way Mr. Napier does. I just, I told you some numbers in the general fund, which this is what it's being paid out of. How can we, cutting all of these departments or looking to cut these departments, possible layoffs, and yet we still have the audacity to go and put this before the people that we're going to travel to Washington. Eugene, it's time to wake up, man. Things are bad here. I mean, there's no doubt. And you know as well as I know, somebody, you went twice. What has come from that? You did learn a lot. I don't disagree. It's a learning experience, but it's not going to be a do or die for this parish. That $2,500 may be needed. What's the how much is our how much did we have as far as a budgeted? You said we had a surplus of how much? 13,000 in general fund. What happens next year if there's only less than that? I mean, it keeps going down. The surplus keeps going down more and more. That $2,500 becomes big when you only have $13,000 that you didn't spend left over. Now just think about it, Eugene. I mean, it's can't afford to go, man. I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Olivier.
We debate this issue all the time, but I just want to let you know that it's more than a sacrifice of the $2,500. I sacrifice 6 days of making money in my shop when I go to these meetings. That's money I could be making. I'm sacrificing that for the parish of Iberia as well. Okay, y'all got to realize that. I lose money when I go to these conferences, but I'm going for a good cause. I'm going for a reason. I'm a voice for Iberia Parish in Washington, D.C. at the National Organization of NACO. All right, and I serve on the Transportation Steering Committee as well. And we do pass resolutions. We do send legislation up to Washington to talk with all the people in Congress over there, making sure parishes and counties across this country is not forgotten. So y'all keep that in mind too. All right, thank you.
Okay, no further discussion. Roll call. Tommy Landry. That motion passes. Summary number 209, introduced by the clerk of the council, a resolution approving and accepting the 2019 Acadiana Crime Lab Fund Budget of Revenue and Expenditures. All is recommended by the Acadiana Crime Lab Commission. I have a motion by Mr. Gonsalas, a second by Ms. Broussard. Mr. Gonsalas.
I wait.
Ms. Broussard. Roll call. And motion passes. Summary number 210, introduced by the parish president, a resolution amending the 2018 General and Acadiana Fairgrounds Commission fund budgets in the amount of $55,072 to provide funding for the payment of sales taxes not paid by the Acadiana Fairgrounds Commission, all to be funded from the fund balance previous years. I have a motion by Mr. Trahan, second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Trahan.
Yeah, so how many years has this accumulated, this 55,000? Where did that figure come up?
2 years and like 10 months, something along those lines, like March of 14 through December of 16.
Mr. Trahan, you understood what happened. The Acadiana Fairgrounds didn't think they needed to collect sales tax, and they weren't, and they owe the money to the state. So
What fund is it coming out of?
General fund.
Go ahead, I'm good, I'm finished.
You sure can, but you should have read your packet and asked me
No,
the
I
other day.
did, but this is a good place to ask it. So are they still not collected?
When the Acadiana Fairgrounds ran the Cajun Riviera, they didn't realize they had to collect sales tax, and it's obligated. So
what I'm saying is, so every, we're playing catch. Okay,
right.
all right, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for. So this is just a one-time thing last
Yeah.
time? Okay.
Mr. Gonsalas?
This is just basic housekeeping. This is mandated. We have to pay it. I mean, we expressed our concerns when it was in inception that I said that they had to pay it, but they said they didn't. So when the CPAs came back and did it, now a no vote is unacceptable because we have to pay it. We obligated.
Okay, no further discussion, roll call.
You can, you're right.
I started to. Summary number 211, introduced by the Planning Commission, a resolution granting preliminary and final approval to the re-subdivision of property belonging to Dolphin Development, creating tracks 1 to 4 for commercial use located in District 3. All is reviewed and recommended by the Iberia Parish Regional Planning Commission. I have a motion by Tommy Landry, a second by Michael Landry. Tommy Landry?
I'll wait.
Michael Landry? Roll call. Okay, that motion passes. Summary number 212, introduced by the Planning Commission, a resolution granting preliminary and final approval to re-subdivision of Track 3A of Empine Broussard Clay into Tracks 3A to 1 and 3A-2 belonging to Edward J. and Donna C. Copina for residential use located in District 10. All is reviewed and recommended by the Iberia Parish Regional Planning Commission. I have a motion by Mr. Olivier, a second by Marty Trahan. Mr. Olivier.
Pass.
Okay, no further. Nope. Okay, Mr. Broussard.
Leia, I think is how she pronounced it.
Next.
And it's, I would say, I can pronounce the E word.
You're fine.
But I have to start explaining, so we're good with that.
Oh, okay. Okay. No further discussion, roll call. Natalie. Marty. That motion passes. Summary number 213, introduced by the Planning Commission, a resolution granting preliminary and final approval to a re-subdivision of Track 1 of Lily Mae Tozan Romero into Track 1B belonging to Glenn Romero, Betty Romero, and Lily Romero, Grandchildren Trust for residential use located in District 9. All is reviewed and recommended by the Iberia Parish Regional Planning Commission. Have a motion by Mr. Trahan, a second by Mr. Dugas. Mr. Trahan.
Wave.
Mr. Dugas. Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 214, introduced by Planning Commission, a resolution granting preliminary and final approval to a division of property belonging to Stephen L. Freyu, creating lots 1 to 4 for residential use located in District 9. All is reviewed and recommended by the Iberia Parish Regional Planning Commission. I have a motion by Mr. Dugas, second by Mr. Gonsalas. Mr. Dugas.
Wait.
Mr. Gonsalas.
I waive.
Roll call. Tommy. That motion passes. Summary number 215, introduced by the Recreation and Playground Commission, a resolution amending the 2018 Recreation and Playground Fund budget to provide for year-end adjustments. Have a motion by Michael Landry, a second by Mr. Brown. Michael Landry.
Waive.
Mr. Brown. Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 216, introduced by the Airport Authority, a resolution amending the 2018 Iberia Parish Airport Authority Fund budget to provide for year-end adjustments. Have a motion by Tommy Landry, a second by Mr. Trahal. Tommy? Mr. Trahal. Roll call. Brian? That motion passes. Summary number 217, introduced by the Communications District, a resolution amending the 2019 Communication District Fund budget in the amount of $147,461 to provide additional funding for the construction of the 911 and Emergency Operations Center, all to be funded from the fund balance previous years. Contract deadline December 10th, 2018. I have a motion by Michael Landry, a second by Mr. Olivier. Michael Landry. Mr. Olivier? Mr. Napier?
Yes, sir.
Just discuss this one.
I'm like, gosh, you're saying, man, I know you're doing a great job, and surely, you know, nobody wants to take nothing away from 911, but did y'all, and I'm just asking, you know, I think that building is over a $5 million building.
4.9 something is a
$5
bid.
million building. Is there? Did y'all even think about or try to? I know in the scheme of $5 million, could I find $150,000 to cut instead of coming and taking from the fund balance? You know, coming. You know.
I don't believe so. A lot of it. It's an expensive building per square foot, but to give you a comparison, I sat in a presentation a while back by an architect who did a building in northern Alabama. Very, very similar standards. Theirs was to tornado standards, but theirs cost almost the exact same. It was within 200 square feet of ours, and I think their construction price was $5 million, 4.9 or $5 million. And the reason is that, I mean, for us particular, they weren't using grant funding. We are. The grant mandates some unusual features, like, for instance, the building has to have a water holding tank in case the water system goes out, so there's drinking water. It has to have a sewage holding tank in case the sewage service goes out. And if we sacrifice those, we'd sacrifice the entire $3 million grant. I would just add, one thing that might not be visible to the council is the lowest bid was from apparently a very reputable firm, MD Desant, I think. The other bids are all in the mid to upper $5 million range. So if we did re-engineer it, if we went back to re-engineer it, I'm concerned that I'd be back here in the springtime with a cheaper building asking for the same budget adjustment.
What you mean when
Well,
you say that?
the low bid was a low bid by quite a bit. It was 4.9 something million. The other bids were all 5.5, 5.6,
Yeah, but that
5.7
doesn't mean
million.
that you're getting a cheap building if, you know, because the low bid was,
My concern, I guess I'm not explaining it well, is if we go back, cut things.
I mean, I guess my question was, did y'all try?
Yes,
Did y'all
absolutely.
think about that?
If you come see our building, there's no fancy finishes anywhere in our building. It's
I
extremely
mean,
basic.
like the roof, you know, a lot of these architects will put in a standing seam roof when that's not the only, I don't know what you got because I didn't see it. And you compare.
No, it's a flat roof, and that was governed by the Category 5 hurricane standards. So the design of the roof, the design of the walls, the design of the doors and the windows was all mandated to meet I think it's 170 mile an hour wind standard. So it's just a box. There's no architectural
I got you.
touches
I would
to the
just,
building.
I mean, I'm torn like Warren is about, Warren, a couple years down the road, and you said it, that, and you said maybe that grant was gonna help you out with half.
No.
Am I correct? Or is that guaranteed?
When you work with
100%.
FEMA, there's never a guarantee, but
That's what I thought, yeah.
I'm 99% confident we'll get half of it right out of the gate. I'm pretty optimistic we'll get most or all of it back, but the 50% is built into the grant. That's the simplest way to explain it. So I shouldn't have made it sound like that was a question mark. It's not a question mark. The question mark is how close can we get, or can we get beyond this entire budget adjustment being covered by additional grant funding.
Okay, thank you, Press. Thank you.
Ms. Broussard?
Does the budget adjustment have to be made in order to save the project and you to get the grants? Or can you try and get the grants and then we make the budget adjustment based on what was not obtained from the grants?
The former.
The first thing.
Yes. You've got to, we have to sign the contract to document what the building actually cost. And if we don't enter into the contract by the 10th, we'll end the period when the builder has to honor the proposal.
It's a tough one.
I would, ma'am, I would just point out, we currently don't have any, I watched Hurricane Michael, the one that was almost a 5 when it hit in Florida. We don't have any certainly no public buildings. We may not have any buildings, public or private, that could withstand those conditions. With this, at least we'll have one. And I wish it had come in under budget. The effect of this budget adjustment is, it's not a one-time cost that I worry about. It's those reoccurring costs every year. Those are the big ones. Those are the ones that really add up for us.
Mr. Trahan? No. Okay, no further discussion, roll call. Brian, Joe. Be positive, go for it. You're gonna need that phone call. That motion passes. Summary number 218, introduced by the Clerk of the Council, a resolution adopting Chief Guy Bonan to the Iberia Parish Communications District, representing Iberia Parish Fire Protection District Number 1, for a 4-year term to fill the vacancy created by the expiration of the term of Chief Guy Bonan, whose term expires February 24, 2019. I have a motion by Mr. Goshasan, a second by Michael Landry.
Waive.
Mr. Goshasan. Michael Landry.
Waive.
Roll call. Amos and Andy, Ricky and Brian.
I'd rather vote.
Joe. That motion passes. I need a motion for adjournment, and it don't go nowhere. Okay, nope, we're going right into joint committee. Mr. Richard?